song our children need to hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. Too scared to sing the anthem from a braver day, a song our children still need to hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.
Well, hello there.
Mark, that's the best intro yet. I love it.
You like it? You like it? And thanks again for Michael for obviously putting the tunes together and that and remastering it. But we took out some of the. You did mention there was too many of your military days, so I hashed it up a bit. So hopefully you're happy with that. Yeah, nice and good on you, Michael. Thanks as always as well. So there we go, a bit of a collab intro outro. So there you go. And you're going well, brother?
I'm all refreshed. Look at this. I got some new audio. Apologies for last week. Like we say, there was terrible echo. I think we've solved it. And I've got a ring light. So when it gets a little darker, hopefully, you know, I can do some sort of red, blue, green, and all sorts of visual effects.
Oh, well, that would be cute. I'll see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Let's see what that looks like. None of that fancy stuff on my end, mate. You know, we work on a bloody shoestring budget here, mate. People are probably used to that by now.
You're the technical here.
Wow, yeah, as technical as I can get it. You know, burning the candle at both ends with everything. But there you go. And as you can see, Poppy again.
Phone just beeped. I better turn that on silent. There we go.
Oh, yeah. Yep, yes, they are. Yep, thank you, Captain Cutlery. And yes, they absolutely are, Susie. There you go. There we go. What do you reckon? Should we get into it? Could be a longish show, so we'll see how we go, eh?
Hit it.
Righto. I'm going to share my screen, and I've already been told that I'll probably get a gazump strike. You already told me because you did message me because I shared something with you and you said, oh, that's a gazump strike. And so I know that you are covering a bit about the Fauci emails and SMSs, but I'm gonna get into it anyway. So anyway, this is what I'm talking about. Now, Senator Ron Johnson's doing amazing stuff in America, but this is in relation to SMSs about miscarriages and pregnancy in the COVID-19 vaccine. So this was going around. Obviously, I asked around a bit and more, and another issue came up that you need to be aware of. Since many people have significant cytokine storms and fever after the second dose, this theoretically could be associated with miscarriage in the first trimester. And then there was another follow-up just only a couple of days ago from Senator Ron Johnson again on X here. This is another one where Dr. John Mascola and Dr. Anthony Fauci were communicating. I am corrected on pregnancy studies. Initial studies avoid vaccination in the first trimester due to possible fever and higher rates of miscarriage in the first trimester. Now, if you have a look at the red date here, it's the 25th of the 1st, 2021. So very, very, very early on. Now, Bruce, just for a bit of context, so I just want to share that. I know that you're going to cover a bit of this, but I'm going to be talking a bit about a personal situation I went through, and I'll explain why at the end why I'm covering all this. But I just want to premise this and build this up a little bit. So I'm just going to share this little bit of a clip. Now, this is from Event 201. And people can check it out. This is just in relation to the media segment, but if people haven't watched it, I recommend it. But I'm just going to play you this one for context. So I'm just going to play this. If hopefully the sounds, have I got sound on? Yep.
How much control of information should there be, and by whom? And how can false information be effectively challenged? And what if that false information is coming from companies or from governments?
Listen.
So your views welcome.
This next guy, you want to listen?
So I would start by pursuing where trust exists in the ecosystem. Jane, in a prior meeting, mentioned that there's considerable trust by employees of their employer, and that's been borne out by our own trust barometer in the last several years, where it's extraordinary the amount of trust given to the employer. And coupled with that, in times of crisis, as we're living, the role of the CEO and the trust given to the CEO for advocacy and for advancement of accurate information is considerable. I would marry the business leadership of the employer with business leadership organizations, such as the BRT and like enterprises around the globe. But I also think we're at a moment where the social media platforms have to step forward and recognize the moment to assert that they're a technology platform and not a broadcaster is over. They, in fact, have to be a participant in broadcasting accurate information and partnering with the scientific and health communities to counterweight, if not flood the zone of accurate information, because to put the genie back in the bottle of the misinformation and disinformation is nigh impossible.
Okay, so I just wanted to go back to that. So I just wanted to show people this is on the War Against You, Event 201, Flooding the Zone. So if people haven't watched that whole segment of the Event 201, especially this one in regards to social media, I do recommend watching it. But what I wanted to focus on there, Bruce, is the point about what he was making around the CEOs and businesses and corporations having trust with their employees and so forth. So it brought me back, and you see the Fauci correspondence was back around early 2021. Now, as you know, I was working in the disability sector for a private disability organization as a team leader before I got terminated. Now, before termination, I sent a whole heap of correspondence to my employer. Now, I've blanked it out. I don't feel the need to share who the employer was. That's not what it's about this at the moment. But this is Annexure 4 was part of my evidence, because as you know, I also was part of the court case for the babies case with the Australian Vaccination Risk Network to try and get these things pulled off the market for kids, in particular babies. So this formed part of that. But so this was correspondence to my CEO at the time, and a member of the board for the organisation I was working for, who was meant to be a nursing professional. So, and they did a blog called COVID-19, the Vaccine, and Addressing People's Questions and Concerns. And this is part of an email. After watching the above mentioned vlog, I'm responding to some of the answers provided by the member of the board. I've got the audio. My response is premised on the fact that the video seeks to address the organisation I was working for, the workforce, whose age range would be between 18 and 65, and I will be referencing Pfizer, AstraZeneca and Moderna only as they are relevant to the Australia's current situation. So that was that. And what I covered, and there was a lot of points that they covered, but I wanted to bring this up in particular in regards to the research I was doing at the time. Now you can see this letter was actually sent in September 2021, and this was what I referenced when they spoke about vaccine effect and fertility. So my correspondence to them was that shows there have now been 1,614 recorded fetal deaths following COVID-19 injections of pregnant women in VAERS as of the 10th of the 9th, 2021. Again, from the Vigilance, which I covered extensively at the time as well, database, again, it's underreported. Now we know about the underreporting factor in these databases. Total of 2,287 reports with 57 deaths and 147 recovered and resolved. And the breakdown there was for Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and for Moderna there in relation to those, and that's from the Vigilance. Now I covered VAERS, Vigilance, the MRA one, which is the UK one as well, and obviously our Dean database at the time when I was doing all this back in 2021. And at the bottom, I've got it's irresponsible to say that the vaccines are completely safe for pregnant women and those wanting to fall pregnant in the future, as there are no long-term safety studies to confirm this. So this was my correspondence to them. But I'm not going to play the actual audio I've got because I'm not sure about legal ramifications, but I've got a word for word thing about what was covered by this member of the board. So I want to share that. So this is my CEO now talking. One of the things that I've been hearing and talking about with staff, not that I have the answers, is, I guess younger groups are starting to have it and parents are being challenged and saying, well, should my daughter have it or my son have it because it might affect fertility? I guess the same with younger adults or middle-aged adult who wants to have a baby. Does the vaccines affect fertility? Now, this is the member of the board at the time, who is a nursing professional. Yeah, look, this is certainly something that is being raised more and more at the moment, and I think it's really normal and it's really good to ask that question, even if you're not thinking about having children or getting pregnant at the moment. You do, that might be something you're thinking about in 5 to 10 years. I mean, you don't want to put any additional risk on yourself, but no, I'm happy to say the vaccines are perfectly safe. They do not affect fertility. As I said, the vaccines itself, the drug is only in your system for a limited period of time. It's then generating that memory in your immune system, which is a normal thing that our body does. Our body has a memory in its immune system, so it's perfectly safe. It does not affect fertility in men or women. And it's very safe for women who are pregnant to have, and in fact, it is advised that women that are pregnant get vaccinated as soon as possible. Now, this wasn't the TGA, this wasn't, what's his name, Brendan Murphy or anybody else that's really high up. This was actually a member of the board of an organisation I worked for and the CEO. Now, if you go back to that Event 201 clip in regards to, building confidence, these people had absolutely no right to ever claim that this thing was safe and effective. And just before I do move on, this was from Open Vias. This is current as of 26th of June 2026. But you can see here, this reporting was coming in way back in 2021. So, this is the cases. So miscarriage and stillbirth, over 5,000. Menstrual disorders. Now, I've heard so many cases of this over, even in our country, 38,000. Vaginal uterine hemorrhage, 13,000. Cesarean, preterm labour, birth difficulties, 13,000. So these are all reports. And then obviously you've got testicular pain and swelling, erectile dysfunction and that as well. Now, there's a massive underreporting factor, as we know, and you can probably go into that a little bit more. But we have spoken about it before. You can almost 5 times or 10 times those numbers in the underreporting factor on these reporting platforms, because not every case gets reported, right? So those numbers.
It's 100. It's 100 times.
100. So that's massive, right? That's massive. So if you look at those numbers and then you 100 exit, that gives you a bit of an idea. Now, I'm not claiming for one instance that every single report is going to be, it's causation, all that sort of stuff, right? It's not saying that, but it is a very, very strong signal. And there was a very, very strong signal from when I started researching this in the early days. And just to, hit this home, let's have a listen again to our friend here, who had lots of
impact, but we always have to be aware of the capacity of the virus to mutate, and we have to look at what is called the longevity of the protection with regards to the antibodies that are developed. And the world doesn't know that answer. The world is engaged in the largest clinical trial, the largest global vaccination trial ever, and we will have enormous amounts of data. But what's the message for the public? It's safe, it's effective, it will help protect you, but it will also help protect your mum and dad, your grandparents, your nonna, all of Australia.
A couple of other things.
There you go. So I just wanted to play all that because I wanted to give I wanted to give an account to what I was trying to do in that time, like many others screaming from the rooftop about these things, and we faced a lot. And it's okay. At the tail end of it, what I do feel sorry for is potentially the people that have lost their lives as a result of being forced to take this, or coerced, or hoodwinked. All those people that have got long-term suffering. But one of the things is, and I don't know because I'm not in contact with a lot of people that I used to work with, but we had a substantial enough workforce. Now, here's a CEO and a member of the board openly broadcasting a vlog to all the female and male employees of the business saying, without proper evidence, because no one had the evidence, that these things were safe and effective. Now, I genuinely feel for any woman, girl that was potentially falling pregnant, had pregnant, and there's a possibility that they had a miscarriage. Now, I'm not to know that. Maybe none of them did. Maybe the ones that they did had the ones that had the saline one, or had one that was kept out too long, and it, it didn't work as well as what some of the other batches and that did. Who knows? I don't know that. The fact of the matter, these employers have got blood on their hands, and ultimately, if the evidence does come out that an employee listened to that podcast and something did happen, I wonder what the legal avenue is for them now. All this stuff's coming out, that they could go back to them and say, you know what, I listened to you, and I went and got this because you told me it was safe and effective. Now with all the information that are coming out, so just wanted to put it out there. I don't have any recourse. I don't know if anybody has had any issues on it. I haven't got any reports from it, but there's a lot still to come out of this, right? So I see you writing some notes, and I'm pretty sure you've got some input on that.
Yeah, look, Mark, one of the key reasons why I had young paramedics come and speak to me about exemptions was because there's a lot of young females in the ambulance workforce, and they were worried about future fertility. And I said to them, you have very low risk of serious illness from COVID. You have a lifetime of risk of side effects that we don't know about. The precautionary principle in medicine is you don't give anything to pregnant women. There's been way too many catastrophes in the past, thalidomide being the obvious one. So up until that point, you would never give an experimental drug to pregnant women because it's just too dangerous. They ignored all that. They ignored the safety signals. They recommended it for everybody. And as you'll see, the Australian government is still recommending it for pregnant women. And I'll show you that a bit later. And I think one of the, probably several, but one of the key reasons why I fell foul of the authorities is because I was writing exemptions for young ambulance officers on the basis, mainly, that we didn't know what the fertility risk was in future. Now, every exemption that I wrote got referred to the Chief Health Officer, and they all got binned. So Professor Spurrier binned all of my sacred private communications between me and my patients without knowing the person, without being their doctor. But because everything I wrote went up the chain to the Chief Health Officer for South Australia, I think it's one of the key reasons why I was subjected to the harassment campaign that I was, because I wasn't following the script. You know, I was telling patients, I think there are risks here and you shouldn't do it. And that was not allowed.
Yep. Yeah, exactly right, mate. And look, I wasn't a doctor. I was just an average Australian Joe that was really concerned about what was going on and doing a ton of research. And I've got all the evidence. It's all publicly available. That's why I did end up having to scrub a lot of that information, so it's not identifiable to anybody, but it's all there. And I was just a pleb trying to bloody shout from the rooftops about what I was seeing and observing. And I mean, you're a doctor, you're trained, you've been around this for a lot longer, like it's just bloody crazy. And you and many others, obviously, just trying to do the same thing.
Which made it even worse in my case, because I was qualified to give the opinion that I gave, and that was a double strike against me. That's why I had to be silenced. And fast forward to where we are now. Were we wrong about anything, Mark?
No. There's yet to be. No, we weren't. No. I can still back up everything that I tried to do during that period of time with everything that I've spoke about, and it's all. Now, just whatever's coming out, it's like, duh, we could have told you that like 4 years ago.
Yeah,
We
did tell you that.
And I just feel for the people that obviously got hoodwinked, because again, as you can see, and a lot of people don't attribute Event 2. I wonder what's happened. Right, it was only months out from everything that happened, but you can see how much effort they went into to try and control. They already knew how people would react, what would happen. So if people haven't seen that Event 201 evidence, it's there online. Check it out, rewatch it, and then ask yourself, how much did they know? Anyway, over to you, bro. Let's do this.
Oh, all righties, let's do this thing.
And so I'm assuming, oh, that's not yours, this one here.
Yeah, what's that you got there?
Yeah, don't worry, let me get rid of that. That was just an ad. That was an ad that come on after something I was watching.
All right, number 121. So we did start with a sound apology. So please drop a comment in the comments there if my audio is either echoing or too quiet compared to Mark's, because like I say, I've tried to fix it. I hope I have.
Mm-hmm.
Right, what else we got? We got updates, and I will add to what you said about Fauci. They knew there was a risk of miscarriage very early on. There were safety signals, and even if there were no safety signals, it doesn't matter. The precautionary principle has always been you don't experiment on pregnant women, because there's two parties to that, and one of them's very vulnerable. They threw that, like everything else, they just threw it all out the window and away they went. What else we got updates? A little bit more on the Gulf War. The Gulf War is still golfing. It's still heading us towards the economy and energy cliff. And the bird flu scares still being slowly ramped up. In Victoria, it's all about the little penguins now, because apparently one little penguin was found dead, and PCR tested said, yep, that's bird flu. So they're now launching a crash vaccination campaign. Does that sound familiar? To save the little penguins. It won't work, by the way, and I'll tell you why.
Didn't they do the same here in South Australia? They locked it down with 3 cases or something, wasn't there? And there was a pizza box and the football and all that sort of stuff involved as well.
You might have noticed this time that one of the things they're saying about dead seabirds is don't touch the bird.
Yeah, they got that off Nicola Spurrier, did they?
Don't touch the football, don't touch the pizza box, and don't touch the penguin.
Oh dear.
Right. Not easy being green. Bad news for the climate warriors, with news that the barrier reef has failed to die as predicted, and in fact is doing better than it's been doing for the last 40 years.
Who could have predicted that?
Update on the old battery fire problem as we rush into our bright electric future. One of the unexpected or unforeseen downsides has been an explosion in the number of battery fires. And of course, you need batteries if you've got intermittent power, which solar and wind are. And a story from Britain says that it's not just the batteries that are catching fire, it's the solar panels themselves. And apparently hundreds of them are catching fire on roofs. On to health. Something that might have slightly recrossed your radar and certainly recrossed my radar recently is we're both new grandparents, me for the first time, you I think for the third.
Second, yep.
Second time. And I must confess, all what's the word? All credit to my wife Susan, who obviously did the bulk of the child rearing, because I have no memories of any of the sorts of problems that are resurfacing. You know, the sleep deprivation, breastfeeding difficulties, unsettled babies, all that sort of, I don't remember any of that. And I think it's because I went to work while my wife Susan did all that. So yeah, full credit there.
Yeah, interesting days. Well, my eldest is 27 now, and she had really bad issues when she was a baby. So I remember those midnight walks up and down the hallway with bad reflux and settling and all that sort of stuff. That was it. All good fun.
Government overreach section. So COVID certainly shattered my confidence in the police as well as other institutions, and certainly did for some other people as well. And so I've been watching a series of videos lately about how to best protect yourself when you have a casual interaction with police. Because remember, if the police stop you, they're not your friends. They're not stopping for a chat. They're stopping you to screen you for crime. That's why they're stopping you. So I'm going to document some of the things that I've learned from going through that series. And we're going to take it out with the Muslim section if we get that far, because it does look a bit long. Remember the WNBA, the Women's Professional Basketball League in America's been having a bit of a problem because a couple of big strapping men have identified as women and said that they want to play. So the latest on that is that the WNBA have put a committee together, and they think it might take them a few months to work out what a woman is.
So they've taken it on notice, like Professor Skerritt. How about that?
He gets a run through. I think it was actually Professor Murphy, but Skerritt.
Oh, it might have been Murphy. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Skerritt was beside him. That's correct. Yes, and I think at the time Fruin was sitting near them too. I think for that during that.
Lieutenant General Fruin. What's he got? What's
yeah.
he got to do with a health response? Wasn't a military campaign, was it?
Well, was it, Bruce, or was it?
There or was it?
Oh, was it? Yeah. Well, it's actually funny you mentioned about the police interactions. When I was putting the new intro together, the new intro and outro, I was looking at the picture of you and the AFP police. They're talking about, when you were asking them, are they recording? And the female AFP officer was just looking at you blankly, and the other guy come back over and he goes, yep, no, I'm recording. That one that they lost before court, Bruce, that they couldn't find. Yep, he's recording, but lucky you were, though.
Asked them twice specifically. You are recording, correct? And I want you to keep that because I'm going to call for that in my defence. By the way, you don't have to do that. That's evidence. They have to keep that. Unless, of course, the battery goes flat, in which case, what are you going to do?
Yeah, what a shame that all of them went flat.
What are you going to do?
Because how many AFP officers were there, and they all went flat, Bruce? Was there? No, I don't know. Anyway, good on you, boys. Good on you for keeping the country safe.
3 professional witnesses there. So, yeah, you did slightly gazump me, but I'm going to forgive you for that because it is important. So, the Fauci diaries are revealing the disconnect between what we were told and what they knew right back at the start. They can't hold their hands up and say, it was early days, it was an emergency when things were moving very quickly. We didn't know. Yeah, they had red flags right from the start. And that was even if they had ignored all the theoretical red flags before it started. So, yep, they can't hide behind we did the best that we could thing. No, they told us one thing and they knew that something else was the truth. All right.
Yep.
Now, I'm going to play you what Peter McCullough said about the news that Fauci knew that there was a miscarriage risk from the very early days, but he and, your nursing friend on the board and everyone else who was just reading the script happily assured us that there was no risk. And by the way, a lot of the risks of vaccination take some years to develop. You don't get a cancer on day one. It takes months to years to develop. And there was no way we could have known after 6 months of botched safety trials what the 5 and 10 year risk profiles could be. Nobody can know. That's fortune telling. So everyone who just blandly read you the script and said, it's safe and effective, they were lying to you. There was no way they could know if it was safe and effective.
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
So let's see what young Mr. Fauci had to say. I've got to find him.
That's all right. I'll bring him up. Do you want me to take your other one off the screen for a minute?
I'm trying to find him. Senior escaping.
And what about Kennedy's book? That's been censored in lots of, not publicly allowed to be, sold in lots of places, and that actually talks about Fauci.
Let me just. Actually, I'm not finding him. I don't seem to have him up. Oh.
You kicked him off, man. Well, at least you're not kicking yourself off these days. But hang on, I better not speak too soon.
Let's move on from that because he has got a run already, so that's okay, isn't it?
All right, bring that back. Okay.
Okay, so by the way, we've just discussed the fact that Fauci, and let's face it, the world, they rolled out the Fauci plan, right? Despite the fact that he knew behind the scenes that there were risks, and now the Fauci diaries are demonstrating that, and subsequent information has as well. But here's the thing. Our wise rulers, our health experts, as of yesterday, are still recommending the COVID shots be given to pregnant women at any stage of pregnancy if they haven't had their 2 primary shots. So here's the current hot off the press recommendations from the Australian government about pregnant women getting COVID shots. By the way, COVID, that was 19, right? It's 2025, right? So here's what they say. Unvaccinated pregnant women are at increased risk of severe disease and adverse perinatal outcomes from COVID-19. They meant from COVID-19 shots. Unvaccinated pregnant women are recommended to receive a primary dose of COVID-19 vaccine, which can be given at any time during pregnancy. And the reason why the at any time bit matters is because the first trimester, the first third of your pregnancy, is a critical developmental time when a bunch of cells is turning into a small human. And it's the time when there's the greatest risk that something will go wrong if a toxin affects that development early on. So they are still recommending that. And I bet you they wouldn't recommend a whole bunch of other things, Panadol, whatever, on the precautionary principle. But this thing, which is proven to be dangerous, is still, as of today, recommended by our wise health experts.
Yep. Just makes you wonder, doesn't it? Just makes you wonder.
Well, it's either gross incompetence or malice. Take your pick.
Yeah.
Take your pick.
Yep. Yep. What do you reckon? What are you leaning to?
Both.
I was going to say the same. Actually.
All right. Iran war update, and I'm not going to play this Trump clip. I didn't queue it up, but the Gulf War is still golfing. There hasn't been a lot of what we call kinetic activity during the week, so not a lot of ships blowing up, not a lot of bombs being dropped, but some. But the key thing is the Schwerpunkt of the war, the key thing on which it turns, is the strait still closed? Yes, it is, which means Iran is still winning. And Trump, for his part, is still making insane statements, and this is the latest one. After we finish defeating Iran, which is being very badly defeated, really? Any day now, right? See, any day now.
Yep.
Any day. Pretty soon I'll be declaring the Hormuz Strait a territory of the United States. So not only is Iran on the verge of defeat as usual, but so all-encompassing the defeat will be is that the Strait of Hormuz will actually become a part of America any day now.
Yeah, well, the surrounding lands will become America as well? I don't think so.
Now, geography disagrees and Iran disagrees, and I've circled the Strait of Hormuz just so as to remind people where it is and what is immediately around it. And the Iranian government said the Strait of Hormuz has been Iranian, is Iranian, and will remain Iranian. This strait will only be closed and opened under Iran's command. And they've been demonstrating that. So what they're basically saying is Iran controls the outcome of this war, because the outcome of this war is open or closed strait. That's the outcome. And so they've very correctly, in my view, pointed out the fact that, yeah, mate, it's not part of America. Look at it. You don't control it. You never will. And remember, opening the strait is much more difficult than closing the strait. A couple of missiles into ships going through there shuts all the other ships down. In contrast, America has to pretty much stop every attack vector that Iran has. And they've only used a few of them. They haven't used submarines. They really haven't used mines. They just flip the odd drone down there and the ships stop.
Yep.
Righto.
Yep. Well,
Anyway.
this is like, it's almost like 2 weeks to flatten the curve, isn't it? Like Trump, when he first said it, was like, it'll be done in 2 days, right?
Well, if you remember right back at the start, he said it was going to be a 5-day war. And after they killed the Ayatollah on day one, he came out the next day and said, it's a 5-day war, but we're ahead of schedule.
How's that working out for you?
I think we're well over 150 days now.
Yep.
All right. And all the while, the world's oil reserves draw down because the oil that is not coming out of the Gulf of Hormuz is largely being sourced from stocks that were already out. You know, all countries had onshore supplies, reserves, and Australia's are very low. You know, I've got a picture there of what our stocks are, but China and America and other places had months of stocks, but we are 6 months in So these stocks are getting extremely low. There were slight apparent improvements in the Australian stocks during the week based on lastdrop.au, and their numbers jump around a bit, and I can't verify them. Sorry, it's all I got after the official site went down for repairs about 2 months ago. So we're still a month or less for our three principal transport fuels. And I think, like I said last week, if you think that's a comfortable buffer, how would you feel if you had 4 weeks of money in the bank and you suddenly lost your job? You think 4 weeks is a long time?
Nope,
All right.
not long at all.
Okay. And by the way, this is how they've been manipulating the price of oil, because the price of oil should be sky high, should be 150 US a barrel or more. And in fact, at the start of the Russia-Ukraine war, it spiked up to $120 a barrel. Remember, it's like 85, 86 today. So when Russia and Ukraine kicked off, the world oil markets went, oh, this could go bad. And price doubled. After the Iran war kicked out, there's been very muted responses. Kicked up over 100, I think 120 US early on, but it's since gone back well under 100 and it stays there. And this is how they do it, by the way. It's called paper trading. So almost all of the activity buying and selling oil is not buying and selling oil. It's buying and selling a piece of paper that says you own oil. So it's called paper trading. And in fact, the price that you hear about, the price they quote, is not what it would cost you to go down to whatever and fill up your barrel of oil and pass your money over. That's not what the price is. The price is what the paper contracts say it's going to be in a few months' time. So you can have longs or shorts. You can say that I think in the future the oil price is going to be higher, so I'm going to buy it now at the low price. Or I think it'll be lower in the future, so I'm going to sell it now at the high price. But you don't own it. You've just got a piece of paper. And the number of pieces of paper compared to oil is 50 to 1. So only 2% of the input to the price of oil is actually the price of oil. Almost all of it is this wash trading of financial engineering for future prices. It's not the real price. The real price is much higher than this. Now, that, by the way, is the same for gold and silver, as you can see there. So if you've been wondering why gold and silver aren't really responding as much as you'd think either, that's the reason for that. Now, at some stage, this has to unravel, particularly for oil, because at some stage, the person who's bought the contract for the future oil wants the future oil. They need it. So rather than just taking their profit or loss at the time and then entering the merry-go-round again, at some point, the small number of people who actually want oil, according to all these contracts, say, no, I want the oil. I don't want the money. I want the oil now. And when that happens, you get a short squeeze because all of a sudden, people who are just trading paper have to buy oil to settle the contract if it doesn't just roll over. So at some point, this has to unravel. And the longer it takes to unravel, the bigger the correction is. Because, you know, at the moment, almost none of the inputs to the price of oil is the price of oil. It's all paper contract trading. And when's this going to happen? Look, I thought it should happen ages ago, and I'm surprised that it hasn't. But as John Maynard Keynes said, the market can remain irrational. So the oil price can be unfathomable for longer than people like me who can say this doesn't make sense. So his quote was, markets can remain irrational longer than you could remain solvent, John Maynard Keynes. Now, thinking of this in practical terms, there's a current disconnect between the real price of oil and the quoted paper price of oil. And the longer that disconnect goes, you can equate it to you're holding a beach ball underwater. So the price of oil is low because you've got all these paper contracts pushing it down the beach ball below the water. But you can't hold it below the water forever because you get tired. And on top of that, the beach ball's getting bigger. So you are trying to suppress the price, which is fake, And all the time it's trying to burst back to the surface.
Mm,
And at some point it does. At some point, the disconnect between the fake price and the real price explodes back to the surface, and it must do at some time. And I'm surprised it hasn't already. And when it does, you're looking at a massive increase in the price of oil. I wouldn't be surprised if it doubled, in a day or two when this happens.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yep. It only can stay under for so long.
So in the meantime, I think the current prices we're paying for fuels aren't real. I think they're less than they should be, and I would regard it as a stocking up opportunity.
Watch this space, eh?
Now, I mentioned back here that whilst there are 50 times as many of these fake paper contracts for oil as actual oil, the numbers are far bigger for precious metals, gold and silver. And they've been running the same shenanigans with precious metals for decades. Now, look at silver. For every ounce of real silver that somebody in the market thinks they owns, there's 350 pieces of paper. So there's a massive disconnect between reality and financial engineering, and that's being used to hold down the price of silver as well. And I'm not a chartist, but there are people who are. There are people who read the stock charts and how prices rise and fall, and they look for patterns. And patterns, for some reason, can be highly predictive of the future. And silver's just printed what's called a 40-year cup and handle. So that's a chart pattern where you get a long curve and then another one, and that's where we are at now. We've printed the cup, we've printed the handle, and normally when that happens, you get an explosion to the upside. So silver, which has already doubled in price in the last year or two, could well 5 to 10x in the next year or two, whenever that silver beach ball manages to blast its way out of the water and overwhelm the 350 paper contracts, which are lying to you about the actual price of silver that you want to buy in your hand.
Yeah, wow. So who benefits from that though, Bruce? Like, obviously, we've talked about so many things, and I'm aware to the world now that none of this would really happen unless someone physically benefits. A small portion of people benefit. Is that correct, or is this just one of those things that multiple factors have come together to do this?
Look, I think there's short and long term. So in the short term, oil traders don't care what the price of oil is. They care whether they can guess the right direction. So they buy a future contract saying it'll be higher. They want it to go higher. And by the way, they can make it go higher by buying more and more paper contracts, buying or selling them. So there's a short-term benefit for the traders. And like I say, they don't care what the price is. They just want to be able to predict which way it's going to go and place a bet in that direction. But there's a long-term benefit as well. And one of them is that the current fiat money era is coming to an end. So the typical fiat currency or paper currency generally has a lifespan of 40 or 50 years, and then it fails. And that's not very long. And it fails because governments who can just print money. It's not real. And at some point, that all gets out of control. So there's certainly been a rush for central banks, countries, in other words, are recognizing that the current money is failing. And that goes back to 1971, by the way, when Nixon took the US dollar off the gold standard and therefore took the rest of the world off it, because the rest of the world was tied to the US dollar. So 71 to 21, what's that, 50 years, 55 years. So we're overdue for the failure of the world's current paper money system. Overdue, believe it or not. And by the way, it's nearly failed. Since 1971, it's lost 95% of the value. It's gone anyway. But it's likely. So to answer the second part of your question, the long-term benefit is that central banks and the people in the know that dollars are rapidly becoming worthless. And so they want to exchange their dollars for something else that is valuable. And typically that means real things, precious metals, copper, wheat, whatever. So they'd like to load up now on artificially low prices so that when that beach ball bounces back out, they're sitting on a tidy profit. So that's part of the motivation as well, I think.
Yeah, and then obviously there's people in a position that have set themselves in a position to be able to watch that and do this. The average, low to middle income mum and dad that are just trying to make ends meet, they have no idea what's going to come and hit them, but others are prepared. And I guess this one of the things you've been trying to do with our episodes is trying to, show people that, to start self-preparing. And the other thing is reducing as much of your own personal debt as possible, get yourself in a good situation. So you're not at the whim of the government or bureaucrats or anybody else, right?
Yeah, and the problem with debt is that somebody else has a partial ownership of whatever that thing is. The bank partly owns your house, they partly own your car, partly own your credit card. And so if things go bad, they can take full ownership. So the way they could do that, for example, is let's say you got $1 million property, but you only have a half equity in it. So you got 500,000 equity, which means the bank's got half ownership. Now, if we get a major housing crash, and we will whenever the current fiat money system dies, like happened in the Great Depression, you might find that your $1 million house, of which you own 500,000, is suddenly a $500,000 house, of which the bank owns all of it. So they just take it. You're wiped out, they get it all. So that's one reason for that.
Yeah.
The other thing is you can't store wealth long term in government paper money because they're skimming it. It's losing value all the time. So that's why precious metals and things like that give you a shield. The government can't print gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or Bitcoin. That's my other digital gold.
Well, then they just put laws into effect that strips people off the gold assets. Isn't that what they did then back then in wartime?
Yeah,
or
they
something?
either make gold ownership illegal, which was certainly true in Australia and America for many decades, from I think the 30s onwards. And the other thing is they can punitively tax you when you actually want to turn it back into whatever the currency of the day is. So let's say you put $10,000 of 2000 value into gold. Fast forward to whenever it blows up, 2030. That $10,000 of gold is now $100,000 of gold because you measure it in dollars, which aren't worth anything. So you've protected yourself against the government skimming 90% of your money. But the government says, you made a profit there. That's a capital gain. We'll tax that. That's how they do it when you re-enter. So they do not want you hiding your wealth out of paper money because that's how they skim it. That's what inflation is. It's them skimming your money all the time. And if you hide by going into gold or property or whatever, when you sell it, you get more dollars because the dollars have gotten smaller. And they say, that's a profit. We need our cut.
Yeah. Every angle you turn, death and taxes.
As they say, it's like the mafia, but the mafia doesn't bother pretending.
Yeah, that's right. And they don't put in legal protections to protect themselves, do they? So.
All right, bird flu update. So the scare continues to build, and we hear almost daily that yet another dead bird has been found on some beach somewhere. But this week, gasp, one little penguin has been found dead at the world famous little penguin colony in Melbourne. So what are they going to do? They've announced an emergency Vax the Little Penguins campaign. So they rolled that out almost immediately.
Well, of course they did.
Now, this is absolute theatre. This is theatre on the scale of Kangaroo Island's koala vasectomy program, which you probably remember from 20 or 30 years ago.
No.
Yeah, about 30 years ago, there was this scare that there were too many koalas on Kangaroo Island. They were going to destroy all the eucalyptus trees and all die, ignoring the fact that, natural populations sort of self-regulate food supplies. No, they said, oh my God, there's too many koalas. They're going to all die. We're going to have to cull a whole lot of them, drop the population down. But that was too politically sensitive. So instead, they had this vastly expensive and ineffective campaign where they captured wild koalas, anaesthetised them, vasectomised them, and let them go again.
Oh,
I'm not shitting you, Mark.
Well,
So-
I wasn't a South Australian then, so I've only been here for 20 years. So, but you're kidding.
All right.
Bloody
So
hell.
same. The
Oh,
solution
dear.
here is there's apparently 5,000 little penguins, and they're going to have to catch them all and vaccinate them to save them.
There's some
Now-
good little memes going around with the birds are fighting back and stuff, like little videos where they're all fighting back.
I notice in the graphic you got the seagull in the background. That's the dirty diseased nanovector.
Yep. Yep.
Now, the vax campaign for little penguins will fail, and I put fail in quotes because it depends on what you regard as a success. If your success is we will save birds from dying who would otherwise have died, won't work for that. But if your definition of success is we ramp up a scare, we tell people that, hey, we can save you with vaccines, that is a success. Okay.
Mhm.
So here's the reasons why it won't be a genuine health success. First off, they're proposing to use an injected flu vaccine in the penguins. And we know from COVID that injected vaccines don't produce antibodies in the right spot. They're not sterilizing, so they don't stop your lungs filling up with flu viruses. At best, they might give you some protection if it invades deeper into your body, which it usually doesn't. So there might be some protection there, but they're putting the immunization into the wrong compartment. You need to have your beach defenses on the beach. And in case of influenza, it's a respiratory thing. You have to produce antibodies in your respiratory tract. Injecting it doesn't do that. There's a natural vector. They tell us all the time, some migratory seabird, traveling from Antarctica to Shanghai, drop some viruses on a beach. That's going to keep happening. If that's true, if there's really a natural reservoir, you'll never get rid of this thing. Birds will keep flying over and shitting viruses onto beaches or chicken sheds or whatever.
Mhm.
No niche public relations campaign of vaccinating a few penguins is going to change that. This virus is going to sweep through, same as COVID, regardless of any control measures you make. It's all theatre.
Yep.
Next,
Bit
you
like
got
COVID, right?
practical issues. Exactly. Does it ring a bell? COVID, by the way, was a flu-like illness, you might remember.
Yeah. Rinse and repeat. Rinse and repeat.
Now, your third issue here is that how the hell are you going to catch wild birds, 5,000 of them, twice, 4 weeks apart, and jab them?
Hmm.
There's some what we call logistic problems with that.
Hmm.
The next question is, will the vaccine even work? We know from history that flu shots are often ineffective or sometimes negatively effective. So you had the Cleveland study, which we showed recently, which showed that healthcare workers who got the flu shot had a 27% higher rate of influenza. So not only are these vaccines probably not going to work, but they might actually cause damage to the immune systems of the birds.
What do you mean they won't work, Bruce? I don't know. That's unheard of, mate. I don't know how you can say that. It'll work for the profits and the bottom line.
Like I said, what does victory look like?
Mm.
We know that influenza mutates rapidly. So even if they've guessed the right strain, it'll be different next week. Won't work. We know that there'll be a delay before it works because they're saying we've got to give the birds 2 shots 4 weeks apart. And, during the COVID era, you weren't vaccinated until you were at least 2 weeks after your second shot. So 6 weeks in. So big delay. There's going to be a huge window. And finally, they're using what we call a surrogate effectiveness marker. The vet who was rolling out this program on TV was asked, how do we know the vaccine's effective? And he said, well, we've seen some immune response in some trials.
Some.
That's a rousing endorsement, isn't it?
Yep. Wow. I'm really confident now. For the birds be all lining up.
And by the way, we learnt this during COVID. What they're doing is they're measuring some antibody and saying after you got the shot, the antibody went up. You're right. Well, as we know during COVID, that doesn't matter because the antibodies either might not work or they might actually be negative. There were the buddy antibodies that actually failed to kill the virus and transport it into cells. So it's a surrogate effectiveness marker. What you
Yeah.
want to know about a vaccine is, do the people who got vaccinated get less illness? Do the birds get less illness than the ones who didn't? Not what their antibody levels are. So they don't know. They're just rolling out the same BS that they roll out for COVID.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a proven pattern, and people that had such a great success last time, they thought, well, people will just keep going.
Yeah, so that's my questions about effectiveness of injecting birds for bird flu. The other half of the safe and effective is obviously the safe bit. And here's what they've told us. They've said it's safe. They've said extensive trial testing on Australian and New Zealand native species. Does that include little penguins? Confirmed this inactivated formula, it's a traditional vaccine, not an mRNA, so that's something, has no adverse side effects on the health of penguins. Okay, based on what? Is that a 2-week trial? Is that a 6-month trial? Is that a 5-year trial? Have they done fertility studies?
Yeah.
And look, even if it does have some effectiveness, what about the stress of catching wild birds twice, microchipping and injecting them? Might that have some adverse events of their own? When I was the designated kangaroo shooter for my area in Echunga, so if somebody rang Animal Rescue and said, look, we found a kangaroo with a broken leg, the advice of Animal Rescue was always call this guy to get it shot, because they never survive it. The stress of it, they just don't survive. So, yeah, the stress of capturing, injecting, restraining a wild bird is not to be underestimated. That's going to cause damage of their own.
Yeah.
Now, fortunately, after COVID and the over-egging of the pudding that went on there, let's cover that sometime.
I like that over-egging of the pudding. I think you already did. We did. You put that up before. We have that in the show.
We did. The comments section to this media story were actually pretty cutting and pretty awakened, if not woke. So Kes Bear 14 comment was actually pretty typical of the general flavour of the comments. So Kes Bear said, I'm not buying this. People are finally waking up to Big Pharma and pushing back on vaccine. So now it's animals in the firing line, since they can't speak for themselves and most people don't know enough about animal illness to question what they're told by mainstream media. Big Pharma still needs to make money somehow, and once again, the diagnosis relies on PCR tests that have a track record of false positives. Not only do they have a track record of false positives, they know how to fudge it. They know that doing too many amplification cycles will give you a positive.
Yeah.
So,
and no wonder Kerry Mullis had to disappear off the world, out of this world before COVID.
Yep. Now, here's some more things that Kes Bear said. Look into the timeline. In April 2026, Bill Gates and Garvey promoted a newly developed bird flu vaccine. That's 4 months ago. No relation.
No, Event 201.
Then in May 2026, the first mRNA bird flu nasal spray for humans appeared. Convenient timing. And that's what the extension of this is. No, honestly, nobody cares if a few penguins die, but the next thing they're going to tell us is, what if it gets into people? So you'll have to rush out and get your bird flu vaccine.
Of course.
Kes also said, I've seen many fairy penguins washed up dead on the shoreline, and speaking with locals who have lived there all their lives, they said it's a common occurrence. So it's not hard to find a dead penguin. And then all you got to do is use a bogus PCR test. Voila, there's your epidemic. There's 5,000 vaccines times 2. And who knows? What's the next thing? Okay, we're going to have to vaccinate every chicken in every shed in a 100-kilometre radius, or just kill them all, one or the other.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Bruce, if there's any evidence of that in a book somewhere, they're burning the books. They've got to put it into Anthropic's buying all the old books. They've got to shred them and put them online and then alter it the way you want it to. 1984, what is it? Memory hole or something like that?
Yep. And that is one reason why I love paper books. I have got hundreds of real books, some of them 50, 60 years old
Yep.
for that reason.
Oh, they'll come after you for that. That'll be next, Bruce, where they'll send the authorities around and say, you know what, Dr. Bruce, you can't have any more paper books because it's bad for your health. The paper might get you, so we have to confiscate your books, brother.
No, it's a fire risk, Mark. How do we know it's a
Of
fire risk? Because we're
course.
going to set your bookcase on fire. That's how we know. That's the analogy to, killing every bird, chicken in the shed. How
Yep.
do we know it kills them all? Because we're just about to gas them all. That's how we know.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, gold. And yeah.
Now, speaking
Although,
of chickens,
yeah,
go on, brother.
I was going to say, that poster did say that, there's no way to defend themselves, and we had the opportunity to defend ourselves, and we're pushing back and so forth. So, but I've heard there's been a bit of a rebellion, so I just thought I'd quickly share it because it is starting to get a bit rowdy, this rebellion from the birds. So I'm just going to play this, mate. Let's bring this up.
House this morning as anti-bird flu vaccine protesters clashed with police.
I don't like it!
The Freedom Flock, cockatoos, chookers, and one enormous emu with unfinished business descended on Canberra and demanding an end to vaccine mandates.
They're trying to control us, brother. The government. Big Pharma.
Things quickly turned ugly, with police ruffling a few feathers after the crowd refused to budgie. Craig Kelly later addressed the rally before shaking wings with organisers.
You just don't know what's in that shit.
Chaos at Parliament.
I thought it was too good to share. And that was actually, I don't know who'd put that together. Craig Kelly shared it. Thought it was gold. So the birds are pushing back too, brother.
Yeah, it's obviously AI, but it's pretty good, isn't it?
They're bloody getting too clever with that AI stuff, but good on them.
Okay, so kicking on from that, next thing you know, it's going to be all the chickens that have got to get vaccinated. I don't currently know if this is planned in Australia, but Europe certainly has required chicken passports in the past. You have to identify and register every single bird, including the 5 chooks in your backyard, right? So what's it say? Countries across multiple continents are rapidly rolling out mandatory animal registration, digital IDs, passports, and aerial surveillance of farms and private land. Okay. Now, of course they are. It should be obvious that over the last 5 years, we are at war with somebody. And the first 4 targets that you must destroy in a war to subdue the enemy population: the food, the fuel, the electricity, and the transport.
Yep.
Tick all those boxes, Mark. Tick all those boxes.
Yep. And you covered that pretty much in one of our episodes extensively, didn't you? About that, about the art of the war that's against us.
Right. Now, in a totally unrelated story, this is just a reminder of what freedom-minded citizens did in the UK a couple of years ago when they rolled out chicken passports for backyard chickens. The citizens registered so many rubber chickens, roast chickens, chicken nuggets on the official registration site that they crashed it. They made the data completely useless. And I briefly mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. It's a technique called data poisoning. If they are mining and scraping your data constantly and trying to build up a profile of you, you deliberately putting misinformation in that can make that database useless. And in the UK, 90% of the birds registered on the chicken passport website were rubber chickens, etc. So the database was completely useless. Isn't that interesting that the private citizen can come up with their own ways of pushing back like that?
Yeah, well, I've got to hand it to the Brits. They've definitely had enough. I don't think we're hurting enough here in Australia, but you can definitely see, they're cutting down those OLED cameras or whatever they call them, and they're really pushing back on a lot of this stuff. And good on them too. But I think they're a bit more advanced than us in the pain that they've been through. So yeah.
They're further down the road. And that, by the way, is what I call the sand in the gears resistance strategy. So one way to push back against the ever increasing load of administrative burden is to do stuff like this.
Yep.
Comply with it, but bugger it up while you're doing it. And there was an example during COVID when there was a period of time when supermarkets were refusing to take cash because it might be dirty. And what some people did is they went in, they did their whole shop, they brought their big trolley down to the front and pulled out the cash to pay for it. And the cashier said, sorry, we can't take that. We have to take a, we have to have a card. And they say, I haven't got a card, sorry. And they walk out. So the supermarket, it's worse. They don't just have to put all that stuff back on the shelves. They're actually not allowed to because it's dirty now. So you can roll up there with, $200 worth of food and then disappear because they won't take your money. And they're out because of their stupid no cash rule.
Yeah.
Just an example.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, you're right too. Silvertail mentioned Dutch farmers again have had enough. They're pushing back. I've seen some images coming out about them on their tractors and everything else like that. And the Dutch are generally known to be pretty hard. I've known a few Dutch people, Dutch blokes, mate. They're pretty, don't come much harder than that. And they're starting to push back. So I'm seeing there's a lot of people are starting to realise that there's a lot of shenanigans going on by people that want to, subversively control us.
Yeah, all correct. Not easy being green, Mark.
I hear that.
Bad news for the climate warriors this week, because apparently climate change is not destroying the Great Barrier Reef. This story on Joe Nova said that, in fact, the last 6 years have been records in terms of coral cover, such that there's now more coral in the Great Barrier Reef than any time in the last 40 years. Now, I'm betting you didn't hear that on the ABC, Mark.
Oh, of course not. That propaganda, I don't watch it.
Now, you didn't hear it on the ABC because here's the data that backs it up. They told us that the carbons were going to kill the reef, or crown of thorns, starfish, or Japanese tourists taking flashbulb photos or something. But it was at risk. We'd all been bad and we were destroying this beautiful thing. Except A, nothing's happened in the last 40 years, and B, if anything, the reef's got more coral in it than it used to have. This is normal. Living systems ebb and flow. The data doesn't support it.
Bit like the natural climate cycle, isn't it, Bruce? It's all cyclical, Ice forms, ice melts, and it goes round and round. Just like the sun, just like we go around the sun.
Now, what we've got here is Dr. Peter Ridd, and Dr. Peter Ridd is a biologist who's fallen foul of the polite and correct thinkers by saying the sorts of things I say about medicine, but he's saying it about the reef. Okay, so he's expressed his own professional judgment about the health of the reef, and as a result, he's been run out of town as well. So he was run out of his university for saying that. So here's what he said. He said in 2012, the AIMS team predicted the coral cover in the central and southern regions would decline to 5 to 10%, not by 5 to 10, to 5 to 10% by 2022. Well, that's gone. Instead, the whole reef is thriving. The fact is, after 40 years of man-made global warming and 1,100 billion tonnes of CO2, there is better coral cover on the Great Barrier Reef than there was in 1985. The ABC hasn't reported this, so I feel compelled to share the news as a public service. We know if it were another record low, it would have been the lead story on the 7 p.m. news. So let's show you what Peter Ridd had to say.
Well, we've seen it all before, haven't we? Again and again and again. How on earth did we end up with record amounts of it if it was killed 5 or 6 times. Or alternatively, you believe those science institutions and that the reef is dying, and this is the villain. Now, Leonard, villain music. The villain is ring the church bells, pop the champagne. The Great Barrier Reef has done it again, 6 years in a row of record-breaking or record-equaling amounts of coral. The latest data from the Australian Institute of Marine Science is now available, and the amount of coral at the moment is higher in the last 6 years or equal to any of the previous 35 years. And again, this shows that what the world's been told about the reef, about the death of the reef, is just plain wrong. So now you have a problem. If you believe me that this is all good news, then that means that those science institutions and the media, which have been saying that the reef is a disaster, well, they've been telling you a fairy tale. And that's not a nice thought. Or alternatively, you believe those science institutions and that the reef is dying, which is also not a very nice thought. Many people would rather not look at the data and just believe those science institutions because they prefer the possibility that the reef is dying than the possibility that those science institutions have been telling fairy tales.
Yes, and another thing where it comes to bite them in the butt, where someone like him, who seems like a very clever guy anyway, and they've treated him the way they have, he's now doing his own little podcast by the look of it, and he's probably reaching far more people than what he would have had if they had left him in the institution that he was in.
What was it that caused me to start podcasting, Mark? I can't remember.
Yeah, it might have been a cancellation, Bruce. Yep. I know that's why you keep doing it, is to, you just wanted to be left alone, but they prodded, and so here you are trying to share with you a little bit of knowledge here.
Righto. So that was bad news about the reef for the climate warriors. And bad news about solar panels, because we know that batteries are essential to our bright green electric future. And that's because the electricity they produce is intermittent. So you've got to be able to store it. That's what batteries do. And we've talked in the past about the risk of battery fires. Well, the solar panel fire risk as well. So this story from the UK said faulty solar panels triggered 212 rooftop fires last year. New figures show, raising concerns about the technology's expansion across the UK. Solar panel installations rose by 52% between 2022 and 25, compared with an increase of 133% in solar panel fires over the same 3-year period. So rushing these things out means you get a lower quality, means you get more fires. Poor cabling and connectors are the leading cause, with fires often spreading to the wider building. I didn't even know that solar panels burn, but not only do they burn, but they can burn down your house, down into your house as well.
Yeah, sounds a bit like the pink bat scheme, Bruce. You give government money to people to put pink bats in the roof for insulation, and you get all kinds of shoddy craftsmanship, don't you?
Yeah, that's a previous example of a government program producing unintended consequences.
Government money tends to do that, doesn't it?
Trust
other
the
people's money.
They know
Other people's money.
They know what's right.
Yeah.
It's
Exactly
for our own
right.
good.
Yep. Es ist für das Allgemeinwohl, für Ihre Sicherheit, Bruce.
Here's the money and finance for the week. We sort of covered that under the Gulf War, but alternative monies, gold, silver, Bitcoin, not much movement there. Oil up significantly. So up to $88. I think that's 5% on the week. And like I say, I don't believe any of this. I think the markets are lying, and I think at some point that beach ball's going to burst back out, because you can't lose millions and millions of barrels of oil for months without losing the equivalent amount of economic activity. As Chris Martenson showed, energy is the economy. Straight line relationship between how much oil you burn and how rich your country is. Well, there's been millions and millions and millions of barrels that didn't get produced, didn't get burnt, and so the economic wealth that would have been created, it's gone. It's not there.
Exactly right. And I meant to flag a comment that's like way up in the chat because our peeps have been very busy with their comments, but did mention about the fact that when we were talking about the Gulf War stuff, how Australia, why are we worrying about what's happening over there when we've got our own resources? And I wanted to respond back then, but it was really because both governments sold us out over multiple decades and screwed our country over for the sake of globalization. So we would be in a much better position if we were able to actually use all the resources that were available to us, including the uranium, to build, small nuclear reactors and all that other technology that's now advancing massively. But no, they just want to screw us into the ground and follow the globalization.
Yeah, our wise rulers said that even though we got 100 years of petroleum and 1,000 years of coal in the ground here in Australia onshore, we can't use it because it's dirty.
Yeah.
We can send it to China and India and they can use it.
Mm.
Maybe it's not dirty there, I don't know, but we can't have it locked up in the
Maybe.
ground. Sorry, not for
They're
that's
dirty.
not for the likes of us.
No, mate, no. And because, the way the world works is their dirty pollution isn't going to reach our part of the world. So we've just got to make sure that we put all the restrictions possible for our 1% of emissions, global emissions in this country.
Yeah, we'll save the planet locally, shall we?
Yeah, let's do that while we screw our younger generations to the wall forever.
Let's do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here's another finance story. So this podcast previously discussed how expensive electricity prices are killing local industry. Australia, for a century or more, offset the fact that it's half a world away from any significant market by having very cheap energy. So we had coal, oil, gas, and we used them to make cheap electricity, which allowed us to make cheap products, which allowed us to send them overseas. Our governments have chosen to stop that. We didn't run out of oil. We didn't run out of coal. Our government said you're not allowed to use it because it's dirty. We've got to instead build this a complete replacement system based on wind and solar, which is more expensive and doesn't work. And a great example of that has been that smelters, aluminium smelter, Tomago in particular, just can't make a profit anymore. And it was on the brink of shutting down. So what's the government done? Instead of going, oh, crap, we made a mistake here, we've ruined our industry by making the electricity too expensive unnecessarily. What the government said is, no, that's all right. We'll just get the taxpayer to pay your electricity bill. So Albo's answer to industry closing down because of electricity prices say, well, we'll just pay for it with government money, which of course is you and me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that, by the way, is what my American friends would say is bass-ackwards. It is bass-ackwards. The purpose of a business is to create wealth. That's what they're there to do.
Mm-hmm.
What Albo's saying is they can't create wealth, so we're going to take taxpayers' money and give it to them instead. It's the reverse direction.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Anyway, this economicsy stuff, it's too complicated for me, Mark.
Yeah, it's not too complicated when you really think about it, because that's how socialism and communism works, isn't it, Bruce? But there we go.
There we go. Let's kick on to the old health section, shall we? So I'm a one times grandfather. You're a two times grandfather. And so my life recently has had elements of the next generation creeping into it. And the pitfalls of breastfeeding have sort of I've become aware of them again. And apparently it's not easy, Mark. Did you know that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. There was lots of impacts and factors.
Now, on first principles, even if it's not easy, it is better. Feeding
100%.
a baby with what nature produced and intended has to be the best option. And there are acknowledged benefits, and here's a few of them. So obviously the food is better tailored to what the baby needs. It's not factory food. It is specifically tailored for that baby. And there's a feedback loop, by the way. You know, different mothers may produce different things depending on the baby's needs. You can't get that out of a tin. You've got the immediate availability and correct temperature thing. You know, you don't have to get up in the middle of the night and boil things and check the temperatures and maybe get them wrong. You've got better immunity because there are things in breast milk apart from nutrients. There are things which are very important for immune health, including passive transfer of antibodies, which are critical early on while the baby's immune system is still developing. It's documented that there are lower rates of rashes in some infections, particularly gastrointestinal infections. And breastfeeding is associated with a significant gain in IQ compared to non-breastfed babies, maybe around the 4 to 5 point mark. And that, by the way, is a huge change. You know, if your entire population was 4 IQ points smarter than it is now, you turn England into most of the way into Japan, most of the way to China. It's a huge difference. So they're the acknowledged benefits, and they're not out there. That's pretty much accepted. But as noted, a lot of new mothers do experience significant difficulties, either with the breastfeeding itself or with the whole social obligation around it. You know, what else do they have to do in life apart from spending many hours a day breastfeeding? So you got that problem. And some mothers really struggle, and as a result, their babies also struggle. And this is made significantly worse by this modern phenomenon where pretty much both parents are forced to work in the modern economy because everything is so expensive now.
Economic stress, yep.
It's not typical for the average family to be able to have the mum not working and doing childcare full time. When I was a kid, it was not anymore. Things are now too expensive. And one of the reasons they're too expensive, which we covered previously, is because the government is too expensive. That YouTube vid that I showed you, now taken down, calculated that the average person hands over 56% of their productivity to the government.
Yep.
So imagine if you had that already. That's more than half. You know, if you got 2 people working and they're each losing 56%, you're down to less than 1. If they weren't losing that, one person would bring in more income into that family.
Yep.
But the growth of government has pretty much forced both parents to work nowadays.
Some will say it was all by design, Bruce.
Good little worker bees. Now, my career hasn't been big on obstetrics and pediatrics, Mark. I've got to be honest about that. And pretty much all I remember about this topic gels down into this. Breast is best, but formula is fine. I think that's what they taught us in medical school. But like I say, recent circumstances have opened my eyes, and a friend of the channel sent me this YouTube expose recently, which actually looks into what is actually the history of factory formula for kids, what's in it. And I'm not going to play it, but there's a link there if you want it. And basically it says that all factory baby milk formulas contain the same toxic ingredients that I'm trying to keep out of my body now. So they've got soy and they've got seed oils in them. So that sort of opened my eyes, you know. Okay, if you had to go at breastfeeding and you're really struggling, okay, do formula. No, formula is not as good, and it's full of many toxic foods that I avoid. Why the hell do you want to put them into a baby? Now, before I list some of those things, let's look at what's in human breast milk. Okay, so most of it's water, leaving that aside. Half of what's left is fat, and that fat is vital. It provides the bulk of the energy needs of the baby. There's also protein, and protein's not just a food. It also includes those immunoglobulins, those antibodies, those things that are nutraceuticals, not nutrients. It's got carbohydrates in it, mainly lactose or milk sugar, and that is different to glucose. It's different to fructose. It's not what they put in our food. It's a specific sugar, lactose. And not only is there lactose in it, there are a number of other small chain sugars which are apparently vital for a normal functioning gut biome. So your gut is full of bacteria. You've got to feed them the right stuff for them to be healthy. The right stuff includes these, small sugars. If you just put glucose into a baby, the gut biome changes and can cause health issues. You've got vitamins and minerals, and at the bottom, these things are really important. You've got antibodies, maternal immunity transferred from the mother. You've got living white cells. That's also immunity transferred from the mother. You've got enzymes. These are things that help digest. And you've got hormones, including growth hormone. So breast milk is not just a food. It is this complex fluid that's full of all sorts of things which are important for the proper growth and development and health of your baby, not just whether it gets enough calories or not. Okay, in contrast, what's in formula? So most baby formulas are cow milk based. There are some specialty ones that are either goat's milk or sheep milk if your baby's getting an allergy to the cow's milk one. But virtually all of them have things added to them which are not in breast milk. They've virtually all got soy in them. And soy is bad because soy includes phytoestrogens, plant estrogens. You're feeding female hormones into a baby with formula. I wonder if that's got anything to do with the current transgender thing. They've got seed oils. They put specific seed oils in there to mix with the fat mixture that's in it. Now, I avoid seed oils nowadays because I know that they're an industrial toxin. I know that they're pro-inflammatory, and I wonder whether they can cause allergies in kids. Now, note what's not in there. There's no living immune cells. There's no antibodies. There's no enzymes, and there's no maternal hormones. And there's certainly none that are tailored to that specific baby, depending on the interaction between the mother and the baby. So whilst infant formula might be a food, it's not a nutraceutical. It doesn't have all the other things in it that you need. And of course, you've got the documented risk, which has been shown many times with recalls, is that sometimes factory formula is contaminated. It can have bacteria in it, it can have heavy metals in it, et cetera, et cetera. And this is particularly a risk in the third world where water supplies might be unsafe, because you've got a powder that you've got to mix with local water. If the local water is unclean, then you're swapping what came out of the breast, which was sterile and healthy and tailored, for this powder thing that you got to mix up with whatever dirty water you got in hand. And certainly there have been documented cases in the third world where tens of thousands of babies have died because they've become poisoned by the local water that's used to make up the formula. All right. Full cream milk powder doesn't say it contains soy until you get it delivered. I got conned. Yes, that's right. And I'm going to talk about options in a minute because I saw a couple back people were talking about options. Okay.
Yep.
So what are the options? What was done before infant formula? And infant formulas, in the last less than 100 years. So back in the good old days, breastfeeding was the norm, and there were much greater social supports to achieve that difficult task. You had lots of mothers and wise women around you who'd done this and knew it and had the pitfalls and knew how to help you get through it. You weren't trying to juggle it while you were, working part-time, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly right. It was a community, wasn't it? It was just, a lot more support.
It was a community thing, and it was a full-time job.
Yep.
Raising a young baby is a full-time job, and breastfeeding can take hours out of every day. So that's what normally happened. Now, if you had a genuine failure, if the mother just couldn't succeed in doing it for some reason, they had what they call wet nurses. You had women who were producing breast milk who would feed your baby. That was their job. Okay, so that was an option. And the final fallback was raw, directly out of the animal, cow milk, goat's milk, or some other animal milk, sheep milk perhaps. Now, I Googled Where's Dan? I didn't grok. I googled. Is raw milk safe for babies? I'm surprised the police didn't come knocking on my door, because apparently the AIs were aghast.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, funny. Some of the conversations you put into AI, and it actually pushes back real hard just because of the programming. It's funny as.
The AI said no, it doesn't have enough calcium, doesn't have enough iron, the fats are wrong. They didn't say it doesn't contain any soy or vital nutrient seed oils. And they said, it could have TB in it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, balance that against what I said, which is in the third world where they push this stuff, you're mixing it up with water that's probably full of bacteria as well. Okay. So those were the general options.
Yeah, and I can attest to that, because a family member, an auntie in the family, that really easily produced breast milk, like overproduced, and she'd be around other kids and she'd lactate and all that sort of stuff. So she was actually a donor. And when you think about it, a lot of people donate their blood and, why wouldn't you? Like, if someone's struggling, isn't that almost the much better alternative to have some other mother's or another woman's breast milk, obviously providing they're not on drugs or alcohol or other sorts of stuff, other than that. So bring that back. I reckon if you've got over lactating other mothers and they're producing far more than what their baby needs, then bloody hell, bring it on, eh?
Yep. And I'm going to push back on Christine a bit there. I think there's certainly a significant number of women who would disagree with you that they found it painful, difficult to start, difficult to make sufficient milk, et cetera, et cetera. I don't regard it as an easy task, and that's just what I'm told.
Yeah, and I can attest to that, because we've had similar circumstances. But again, like you said, the premise of this is that we're decades past an environment where it was usually a lot better for women. They were supported more and all that sort of stuff. There's so many environmental factors that actually impact a mother being able to successfully breastfeed in lots of ways. So yeah, no, definitely I can attest to that as well.
All right, so what's my inexpert take-homes just from what I've been reading about this recently? Breast milk is certainly the superior nutrition for your baby. It's worth persisting with, even if you encounter difficulties, and there are numerous avenues that you should go down before you just give up and say, oh, it's too hard, give me the tin. Okay. So that's my take on that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not qualified to have a take.
Well, that's like the same as the abortion debate, Bruce. You're not allowed an opinion because you're a bloke, right? So
correct.
Anyway,
correct.
forget about your humanity, or actually just genuinely caring about life. But anyway, let's move on before we start another fire.
Let's move on to our old friend government and government overreach. Now, during the COVID era, myself and many other citizens had a massive loss of trust in the police as a result of their failure to protect us during that difficult time. And in fact, not only did they fail to protect us, they collaborated with the government to oppress us. And I'm sure most people would remember this horrific example.
Oh, hello. Oh.
He's choking me! He's choking me! What the fuck? Oh! Get off of me! Get off! Let go of his vest. Let go of his vest. He's fucking choking me! He's choking me! What the fuck? Let go of his vest. Get the fuck off me! Get the fuck him! Stop! Fuck you, bitch! Get the fuck off me! What are you doing? You're fucking choking me, dude! What the fuck? Oh, you're fucked in the head! You're fucked! What the fuck are you doing to me? What have I done? You just tell me what I've done! What have I done wrong? You just keep
Yeah, but you're choking her. As a man on a girl, and you choked her. For what? For a mask? For not having a mask? Look how pathetic you are. She doesn't have a mask. Are you serious? Are you serious? Just for not having a mask? For no mask? Are you fucking serious?
Yeah, never forget, mate. Hey, for not wearing a mask. Hey, well, there's
Never
no
forgive,
proper
never forget.
responses. Just just Stasi tactics,
Yep.
mate. Like, yep. Oh,
Yep.
you
Your
kicked it.
job
You
was to
kicked it.
protect us.
Mm.
So there went decades of community relations. I will never hold police in the same light again, having seen how they could flip and fail to protect the people. That's gone, mate.
Yeah.
That's blown. Doesn't matter how many programs you run. I'm going to view police differently for the rest of my life. And I hope you all know that you made your job more difficult and more dangerous forever because of how you failed us during the COVID era, how you collaborated. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was just
Yeah.
one example. You got a large white male physically manhandling a much smaller, scared woman who couldn't breathe, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And I bet nothing ever happened. No results. Just like all those police officers that shot at innocent Australians at the Shrine of Remembrance in Melbourne, and
Yep.
or pushed the elderly lady over and broke her hip on the ground.
Yep.
The police officer that smashed that young guy on the ground, and I don't think he ended up getting charged. I think he got off, didn't he? The young bloke that died many
In the
months
train
later
station.
in the train station, got his head smashed onto the ground by that sickening image that's there. None of that there. And you are a testament to that too, Bruce. They were trying to lock you away for a long time. You had the potential, being an innocent person, of being thrown away by the AFP for a fudged up bloody charge.
And I'm going to go into that in a moment. But first off, just as an aside, and nothing to do with what I just showed you, there are effective techniques for breaking chokeholds, and they're simple and they work even for small women. Obviously not relevant to the case I just showed you, because that was a police officer choking that young woman for their own good. But it might be applicable to other settings. So have a look at this.
Yep. And while that's on, mate, I'm just dropping off, but I'm still listening.
Roger.
It statically first. The way that you would practice this is that imagine your hands going super high. The hands are already around your throat. So instead of your hands just going here, your hands are going to go really, really, really high as you can actually stretch them. Then you're going to step back and pivot your body. It is that simple. So forward, my hands would go super, super high. I'm going to step back and literally turn my entire body. As I do that, my armpit is what's going to clear their hands from my throat. So from the side, if my hands went all the way up, because under surprise, the biggest thing that we're trying to get you to not do is grab. What we find is that in stress training, people will grab those arms. That's not going to help you. We want your hands to shoot as high as they can into the sky. You're going to step back and turn your entire body. That causes your body weight to do the work, not strength. Because if you're smaller than the attacker, you need to have body weight going against those wrists, not your strength.
Right. So as mentioned, obviously that doesn't apply to a situation where the police are choking you for your own safety, but isn't it a simple technique might be worth being aware of for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just going to premise that when you started playing this, it's like, no, not a good example to use against the against the police, because you'll probably find yourself tasered or shot or worse. And you're right, because I used to train a bit of that self-defense stuff when I was in the disability sector, and we had clients with behaviours of concern, and we had to obviously teach our staff to how to get out of certain tricky situations. So yeah, it was quite interesting actually.
Now, I had multiple police visits myself during that difficult time.
Anything I've written in my emails a criminal offence?
Not that I'm aware of. No.
Or what's one of your visits?
Well, part of my visit is check your firearms.
Yeah, you've actually linked the two things together.
Because this has come to the attention of police,
yes,
because you're a firearms licence holder,
yes,
we can at any time go anywhere we like and check people's firearms.
I understand
Under
that,
the-
but
under the Firearms Act.
you've indicated to me
So-
that you're here to do this because my politician has complained. Is that correct?
I don't know if he's complained or not, to be honest.
Well, that's how you know.
I would assume there's been a complaint put in.
So
okay?
just so as I
As
understand,
far as the complaint goes, I don't know anything about that.
right, you tell me who you are and why.
So I just flicked that back to the start. That needed to start earlier.
Firstly, security audit
Mhm.
on your fire.
No problem.
Security audit check, and then just have a bit of a chat about a couple of other things that are going on.
Start with the other things.
Start with the other things. Just be with me. I need my glasses because I'm blind as a bat without them.
Welcome to my world.
The other thing I'm here for is you've been sending emails, I believe, to politicians.
I often send emails to politicians.
Yeah, a couple of them have come to the attention of police.
Which ones?
I don't have the emails with me. Where you reference Nuremberg trials.
Oh yes, I've done that.
Not
Been
well
to the
briefed.
actual office of Josh Teague, have you?
Multiple times. He
And,
refuses to meet with me.
Yeah. Most recently, it says he recently threatened to follow Teague wherever he goes and wave the South Australian flag and upside down to display that the state is in distress until Teague meets with him or with you. Yeah.
What's your point?
I haven't got a point. What is happening? These emails, as I said, have come to the attention of police, and it's just drawing attention. I guess in the end, it's drawing attention to you, which you probably don't need, or don't want, or don't appreciate. I don't know.
I don't know.
And that's why I'm here.
I don't know where you're going with this.
I'm not going anywhere with it. What this is, I guess, friendly advice more than anything. To maybe, I don't know, tone down your emails, for instance. Be careful what you write in your emails and how you refer to people, for instance.
Is anything?
Yeah, so that was my first police visit. That was a friendly chat telling me that if I didn't tone down what I was saying, then things might happen which I did not want. Okay.
Yep. And he incriminated himself. He pretty much bloody said exactly what he was there for. Josh Teague, do you know Josh Teague? You're right into Josh Teague.
How are you,
mentioned
Josh?
earlier. Yeah, Josh, and you mentioned Nicola Spurrier as well, obviously, and I'd say she probably had a hand in it too. You know, you're probably a bit known about this, so yeah. But yep, just
Now,
a random
to-
check, Bruce. Just a random check.
I'm going to go into how you deal with these sort of police encounters based on some reading that I've done. But I noticed that even then, 5 years ago, I knew enough to ask for specifics.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm here about some emails. Which ones?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't know. He was just there to bloody threaten me. Is what he was there for. Okay.
Yeah, intimidate you, mate. Intimidate.
Yeah. Anyway, he told me to tone down what I was saying, or things might happen which I did not want. I don't always respond well to direction, Mark, because I didn't actually tone down what I was saying. In fact, I kept saying what I was saying, and I went to Canberra to the protest, you might recall. And that was my second. This was my second interaction with the police. Different force this time. Previously, SAPOL. This time was the AFP. Now, I'm pretty sure on this occasion that I was targeted as an example and set up by the Australian Federal Police, and certainly the findings of the court, where I was exonerated, support that. But for people who don't know, I was almost stationary in heavy traffic trying to get into the airport when a traffic controller ran up to my car and punched the bonnet so hard that he left a dent in it. This was seen by 3 AFP officers who were sitting 50 yards away in a police car watching for some reason, who then dived out of the car and descended on me because what they said I'd done is that I'd committed vehicular assault and in fact assault occasioning actual bodily harm, because the road worker, it turned out, had a bad back. The only problem is I showed that he had it beforehand. and also that there was no contact. So cut a long story short, I was set up by the AFP. They lied about what happened, and they took it all the way to court after I'd been in jail for a week, on bail for a year and 3 days in the court, where they said that they had all seen me drive recklessly and dangerously into this crowd, striking and injuring this road worker. That's what they all swore in court. The only problem is I actually filmed not what happened, because I didn't know anything was happening until it happened, but I filmed what the first interaction with police showed, and that's what this is. So this is that first police officer admitting that there had been no contact between my vehicle and the road worker that I so grievously injured.
Driver's license, sir? I do. Can I see it, please? 1 moment. Please identify yourself. Comfortable with the ACT police? There's my badge number. You can see it quite clearly there. Thank you. Just wait a moment. I have poor memory. I'd like to fill in. Asked you to produce your driver's license, please, sir. I've said I will. No worries. Is there any reason you failed to adhere to the roadblock there from this gentleman? Yeah, because I had a green arrow. The gentleman's blocking traffic here. He was standing there and you almost struck him. We were just there, we saw you. You almost run the gentleman over. Okay.
Almost.
And I think you played that previously in slow motion of him going, "You almost."
I sent that around everywhere. Lots of little edits for that, so that's all right. Yeah, no, definitely went around heaps of places.
So that morphed over a period of time into 3 sworn officers seeing me drive at high speed and recklessly into a crowd and strike deliberately and injure this worker, even though at the time it was, you could have hit him, mate. So we got to play that 3 times in a row in my defence in court, after each AFP officer in turn described my dangerous driving behaviour and the collision with the road worker. So that was crucial to me being found not guilty. The fact that the police admitted at the time that I was not guilty of what they subsequently charged me with. So that was very useful.
Yeah, and if people do want to check that out, there's full interviews on my Rumble. It's called "Treated as an Outlaw, Cancelled." South Australian Dr Bruce Paix is vindicated in court. So that's 3 years ago. It's their full interview post all the charges being dropped. So if people want to check that out, they can go and check that out there.
Yeah, they paid my costs as well. So all right. So that was twice where I think me filming a police interaction was helpful to me. And there was a third one, because I had a third police visit after this where they pulled the old firearms check thing again while I was still living in South Australia. And given, that I'd already had 2 adverse interactions with them, including one where they clearly perjured themselves to try and frame me, I set up a hidden camera. So as when the firearms check took place, I had vision. And this was hidden up on a shelf. Wasn't easy to see. And this is what happened during that.
Sneaky.
I do all sorts of things. The smaller stuff is for rabbits and so forth. The military weapons are for service rifle, which is usually
the oh shit moment.
You know about the stars, don't you? You know about the stars? You sound like your ex-service.
It never gets old. That really just never gets old, Bruce. Every time I've watched that, I just never gets old. He's like, you can see his face when he has that, oh dear.
He looks like a shoplifter, doesn't he? And the whole setup was sus. So at the time, I was back and forth from Victoria to South Australia. I understand they'd been to the house a couple of times to try and do a random firearms check, just like the one at Echunga. And I hadn't been there. So eventually I contacted them and said, look, do you want to make an appointment and do this? Because otherwise you're going to struggle to catch me. And I don't think they're supposed to do that. I think they're supposed to be random. But anyway, they'd missed me a couple of times. Although I must say my mother played her part well. So my mother's in her late 80s. And when she had 2 uniformed police officers turn up at her door the first time and say they were looking for me, she said, "Go away, you're a bunch of scammers." Now, I'm not saying she was too far wrong, right? So anyway, at the appointed hour, I knew the police were coming, so I'd set up this camera in the shed. So I went to, knock on the door, went to the door. There's 2 uniformed officers there, and I said, "Yep, no worries. Just come around to the side gate and I'll let you through and we'll go down to the shed." So once I opened up the side gate, 2 other police officers appeared in plain clothes. So there was suddenly 4 police officers to do a random firearms check. Remember, the first one only took 1 copper, right? All of a sudden, I had 4 police turning up to do our routine firearms check. So when the second 2 appeared in a second vehicle with a canopy on the back, they weren't even in a patrol car. They were ready to take away cargo. So when they suddenly appeared, I said, "Hang on, what's this?" And they said, "What?" I said, "Well, since when do you need 4 police to do a firearms check?" And they said, "Oh, we were just in the area. We thought we'd tag along." So I said, "Well, that's bullshit." Anyway, we went down to the shed, and as you can see, I had a hidden camera, and I said to the police, "This is a small shed. That's my dead father's car. My mother's very, protective of it. You stay down the front here, and I'll bring the guns up to you one at a time. I don't want anybody brushing past the car," right? And they agreed. Now, the purpose for that is it meant that I could individually film me bringing each gun out, and also I announced out loud what it was, so there could be no argument about, hang on, one's missing. So partway through that, this copper noticed the fact that he was being filmed and went, "Oh shit," and told the others. Now, by the way, it's either good practice or actually required by law for you to have a security camera on your gun safe. Depends on jurisdiction and how many guns you've got. So discovering that there's a security camera watching you should not be anything that concerns a police officer. It's a normal thing. But clearly this guy not only was like the uh-oh, and he took enough trouble to point it out twice to the other 2 while my back was turned. Okay. So I think this was another setup attempt. I think what they were going to do is they were going to find a bullet, and then they were going to say, "We've got unsecured ammunition here, sunshine. We've taken all your guns." That's what I think they were going to do. And I think suddenly realized, oh crap, this is being filmed. They thought, okay, abort, 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 don't do it. And if you think that's maybe a little bit out there, this is exactly what this Western Australian gun owner says that the police did to him recently. So again, he had 4 police turn up for a routine firearms check, which should normally be 1 or 2 cops, if that. They found a bullet on the floor during this and said unsecured ammunition. They took all his guns away. Now, here's the rub. The bullet didn't fit any of his weapons.
Funny about that, hey?
My guess, it was probably a 40 caliber pistol, that would have fit one of the police weapons. So I'm just saying my level of trust after what I went through in the last 5 years has significantly changed compared to what it was.
Yeah, well, finding the bullet is a generous example of what probably could have happened, Bruce, because it could have been a lot worse. And it's really sad to say, especially from someone that's, people know I'm a Christian, but from what I've experienced, what I've seen you go through with the AFP, these examples, the police, what happened through COVID, the trust factor is very, very low. And I think the finding a bullet is maybe the lesser account of what could have been what they were planning. So God forbid. But anyway, that's just where our minds go now, because unfortunately that's the world we live in, isn't it? And we've got lots of receipts to say that is the case, and I hate to say it, People, you have conspired to lose the trust of the community, unfortunately.
Yeah, that ship sailed, and I would recommend any gun owners, if the police turn up to do a random firearms check, say, sure, I'll comply. I'm required to do that. I'm just going to get my neighbour over here as a witness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And if they can't refuse that, why would they refuse that?
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, with my new worldview in mind, I've been watching this YouTube channel a fair bit in the last week or two, where it's AI, but it does seem pretty good. And apparently it's the AI front for an Australian lawyer who doesn't want to use his own face, where he talks, like a dentist. He talks about, okay, what are your rights and how to protect yourself during these routine police interactions. And he's mainly talking about traffic stops. He's not talking about if you're a victim of crime and the police come out and then you say, I'm not answering any questions. That's stupid. This is for those random, spontaneous interactions with police where basically they are screening you for a crime. So if you want to have a look at the series, I've got the search term there. So here's what I've gleaned from watching this. Now, first off, background for traffic stops. In Australia, the police can pull you over at any time for anywhere for no reason, because all they've got to do is say, we want to do an RBT. So it's not like America where they have to have reasonable cause or suspicion. They can stop any vehicle on the road and say, blow into this, mate. They've got that power. So they can use that as an excuse or as the actual reason for the stop. Now, at that stop, they can direct you to do 4 things, and you are required to do these things. These are not arguable. You have to give your name, your address, you have to hand over your driver's license, and if they request it, you have to give a breath test or a saliva test. So those 4 things they can legally direct you to do just by pulling you over. And A, you have no choice, and B, if you refuse, you generally find that the penalty of refusal equates to the worst level of failure. If you refuse to blow in the bag, they say, well, that's the same as being high-range drink driving. Okay? So here's how such a routine traffic stop would generally unfold. So at the start of it, the police come up to your window and they're usually casual and friendly, at least at first, and they often try to have a bit of a conversation with you. Evening, sir, where are you headed tonight? Now, the key thing to remember here is that these people don't know you, they're not your friends, and they're not there to have a friendly chat. They're pulling you over to either accuse you of a crime, speeding, or to screen you for a crime. I can smell alcohol, what's that on the seat, etc. So that's how they usually start. And they usually start with a question because that requires an answer, which means they can get you talking. So, do you know why I stopped you tonight, sir? Now, a question like that is a fishing question. They're basically inviting you to confess to something. Oh, shit, I did coast through that stop sign. Yeah, was I going a bit fast? Whatever. So they're inviting you to give them something. And once you've done that, that opens the door to other things happening. So if you say, oh, yeah, sorry, where are you going tonight? Well, I was just on the way home from the pub. Oh, is that right? Well, we might do a breath test. We might, whatever. So they try and engage you in a conversation, but they don't care about the conversation. They're just trying to get things started. Now, the advice from this video is, given the 4 reasons or the 4 things that they can require you to do at a random roadside stop, you might as well demonstrate compliance with all of them at the start, because that kills any suggestion by them that the driver was evasive, the driver was uncooperative. So they suggest you do this thing. You derail the fishing question, the good evening, sir, where are you going tonight? By instead saying, good evening, officer, here's my license. Please state your name, your duty station, and the reason for the stop. They're required to give you their name and the duty station, and you'll notice I asked the police officer in Canberra to identify himself, and also the one in Echunga. Right? You will tell me your name. and they're required to do that. So you can cut off all the phishing check questions. You can cut to the chase by doing everything that they could ask you to do. Here's my license. Now you tell me who you are, what your station is, and why you stopped me. Hard to come back from that with, okay, so what are you doing tonight? That's not the reason for the stop. Okay. So that's the suggestion from that. That's if they ask you a question. Now, the other thing they can do is they can direct you or ask you to do something. Now, if they ask you to do something, the key question is, are they requesting that you do something or are they directing that you do something? So a request is voluntary. You don't have to do it. A direction is they have a power to direct you to do something. So if they direct you to do anything, ask you to do anything, you say, is that a voluntary request or a lawful direction? Now, if they say it's a lawful direction, such as I want you to blow in the bag, you can then ask them, okay, state what act you're relying on and what section of the act to make that direction. So that shows them that you know exactly what your rights are and they're required to answer. So if they're just doing phishing, they're required to tell you, no, it's not a lawful direction. I'm just asking you. Now, if it's not a lawful direction, you don't have to do it and you shouldn't. And if it is a lawful direction, you do have to do it and you should. So if they're giving you a request, would you mind telling us where you're going? As a general rule, don't tell them where you're going because that's the opening the door to the next question. Where are you going? Where have you come from? Why are you going there? How long since you left? And these things open doors that don't need to be opened. So the answer to that,
is this valid question for why I've been stopped?
Yeah. So the answer to that is you've asked them, is this a request or a lawful direction? If they say, look, it's not a request, then your answer generally be, sorry, I don't comply with voluntary requests, but I will comply with any lawful direction. It's a variant of the I don't answer questions thing because answering questions cannot help you. They're fishing for something. Where are you going? I'm going home. Where have you been? I've been at the pub. When did you leave? How many drinks did you have? They can build a crime once you open your mouth and answer the first question. Now, this is particularly shocking to me. Police are allowed to lie to you.
Yeah.
For example, they could come to your door and knock on the door and said, we've had a complaint about you when it's bullshit. They can lie to you.
Wow.
What they're not allowed to lie about is whether they're making a lawful direction or a voluntary request. So bear that in mind. And not only are the police allowed to lie to you, I've got runs on the board where they did. Okay, so back to where to go with this. And, if people are watching this or interested, it's a bit fast, go through it a number of times. So if they ask you a question and it's a request that you answer, not a direction, the general advice is do not be the reflexively helpful person. Don't try and help them, Oh, can you just help us out with this? We're just trying to clear it. No, don't. If it's voluntary, don't say anything. And the reason for that is, like I said, any answer you give opens new doors. They might check what you've said. You might make an accidental error. I left the pub 20 minutes ago, but in fact it was 40 minutes ago. They can record. Remember, they're on a camera. They can record everything you said and check it. And if you make an error, they might say,
they want to lose it.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm pretty sure if you weren't filming, they would have found theirs and only given the edited version of what they found. So, yeah, funny about that.
Right. That's right. So the advice from the video was, if you're asked a question that's voluntary, just say, I prefer not to answer questions unless I'm required to by law. And that's for any question. What's your favorite food? Doesn't matter. They're trying to get you in conversation. They're trying to open doors to things that they might do next. Now, of course, if you do that, pull you up at the roadside, good evening, sir, where are you going tonight? And I say, I prefer not to answer questions unless I'm required to by law. The police are going to push. So they're going to say something like this. Okay, so you want to do this the hard way, do you? Why won't you answer if you've got nothing to hide? You do know that not answering makes you look guilty, right? The answer to everything, because these are questions, I prefer not to answer unless required to by law.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mentioned specific or examples of them giving you the opportunity to incriminate yourself. You know, this is the old school teacher thing. Has anybody got anything to confess, to tell me? So very common examples of this. They pull you over and they say, do you know why I stopped you? Do you know how fast you were going? Do you know what the speed limit is here? Now, there is no benefit to you in answering any of these questions. You know, do you know what the speed limit is here? If you say no, then it's harder for you to then say, but I was going under the limit. So you get my point? So again, you fall back on, I prefer not to answer questions unless I'm required to by law. And you're not. So having fended them off a second time, they're still going to press. So they might say this, I can smell alcohol in the car. I can smell marijuana in the car. You were swerving all over the road. Can we do a fifth? We don't have a fifth in Australia. No, you can't. You were going pretty fast there. Not answering questions will just make things worse for you. Now, notice none of these things are questions and therefore they don't require an answer.
Yep.
So if the police officer who's trying to engage you says any of these things, you don't have to say or do anything. These are not questions. Okay. And by the way, one, alcohol has no smell. It's a colorless, odorless liquid. It's what it's mixed in gives it the smell. You know, when you're smelling beer, you're smelling beer, not alcohol. Okay. And secondly, they can pull you over. Yes. Secondly, they can pull you over at any time and require you to take a random breath test. They don't have to say, I can smell alcohol. That means I can give you a breath test. They don't even have to go through that charade. They can pull you over and say, blow into this, mate, and you have to. It's one of the four things.
Because it's legislated. Yeah, it's legislated.
Correct.
That's right. Exactly right.
Correct.
Yep. And this isn't, I mean, you're obviously not going out there saying, well, you know, if you're, you know, drunk and, you know, coming from the pub and drinking, you're doing the right thing. Well, you're not doing the right thing. The point is that they've got to prove based on what they can that you did something wrong. You don't need to be given them more information.
I'm saying there's a massive power imbalance here, and recent behaviour of police has shown they cannot be trusted with that power, and you have rights and you should stick to them, not try and be helpful. That ship has sailed.
Amen. Yep. 100%. And so many examples over the last 5 years. And I look, you know, and as I said, before 2020, I was naive, just, you know, getting along, doing the right thing, you know, obviously trying to live the best life you can. But I'm definitely much more aware about, you know, what we should be disclosing, what I shouldn't be disclosing. And just, you know, I mean, people will say, as you mentioned in that, people will say, you know, if you're not doing anything wrong, Bruce, why care? Well, we should care because our powers to be have proven not to be trustworthy, and that's the difference.
I haven't found not doing anything wrong to have kept the police away from me so far.
Yeah, true. Yep.
All right. Some more specific examples. Cops will often do this. Do you mind if I have a quick look in your car? The advice is you should always refuse this on the basis that if they had a reason to search your car, they don't have to ask you. So this is a voluntary request. Now, if you consent on the basis of, well, I've got nothing to hide, well, you don't know. Look at what's happened to me. The police can lie. The police can plant evidence, or they might label something in your car which is innocuous as a weapon. You've got a screwdriver on the seat. That's a weapon, mate. You've got a baseball bat there. Yeah, well, I'm coming home from baseball. That's a weapon. And like I say, the trust ship has sailed. So placing yourself at risk of those things is unnecessary and doesn't help you, and refusing avoids that risk.
Yeah, and I think even people have watched enough Hollywood movies these days over the decades to know that, you know, planting things in vehicles or houses to set someone up is a real thing, right? So, it happens even in real life. Not a Hollywood
Remember,
movie.
the police can lie to you, and they can also fabricate text messages and so forth. They're allowed to do that.
Yep, to catch you out. Yep.
All right. So if they ask you, can I have a quick look in your car? The answer is, I'll comply with any lawful direction, but I don't consent to any searches, which means no, because they don't have to ask you if they've got a reason. Now, again, if you do that, simply stating your rights, they're likely to pressure you. Why are you refusing if you've got nothing to hide? You do know that refusing just makes you look guilty. We can just keep you here all night while we wait for a warrant or the dog squad. Answer is the same. I will comply with any lawful direction, but I don't consent to any voluntary searches. And by the way, refusing always makes you look guilty. No, the courts are specifically not allowed to infer guilt from a refusal. So the police are lying to you when they say that. Okay, we can keep you here all night while we get a warrant. No, they can't. If they don't have a reason to detain you at the time of the stop, they can't wait for an hour while somebody gets a warrant and brings it out to the scene. They can't do that. So they're lying to you again if they say that. And from the video series, one way you can sort of bring these circular escalations to an end is you can say to the copper, I'll comply with any lawful direction, but I don't consent to any searches. Am I being detained or am I free to go? Now, when you say that, if they don't have a reason to detain you, they have to release you. They have to admit that and release you. If they do have a reason to detain you, they have to state that reason as well. I am detaining you because I'm suspecting you of X, Y, Z. And if they're just fishing at the roadside, they don't have a reason, so they can't do that.
Yep, exactly right.
And in reference to what Lily says, you know, for the people who say, I've got nothing to hide, ask the Dutch Jews who ticked Jewish on the government census box in 1937, thinking, yeah, I'm not scared to be Jewish, not a problem. They had a change of government in 1940, brackets, the Nazis marched in. The Nazis said, nice set of government records you got there, thank you very much. And they used those records to murder 80% of the Dutch Jews during the war.
Yeah.
It was the highest death rate anywhere in Europe at the, you know, during the Holocaust. And these were the, you know, the Dutch Jews who trusted their government, didn't mind ticking the box on the form. Things changed in the future. They just didn't know they had something to hide.
Yep. A bit like the unvaccinated class, eh, Bruce?
Yes.
Why don't they, it's surprising they didn't ask that in the census.
Actually, yeah, that's right. All right. From the video series, 3 people not to be at this random roadside stop. Don't be the helpful over-explainer. The more you say, the more they can check, misinterpret, you know, cross-check, decide that you look nervous. You said 2 things that just, you know, saying nothing stops you being this person. They say, don't be the sovereign citizen. So don't say, look, I'm not driving, I'm traveller, I'm a free traveller in the land of Australia, capital letters, forget all that shit. That doesn't work at the roadside or anywhere. And finally, don't be a roadside lawyer. If you say to the cop, you know, what act and what section are you detaining me under, or asking me that question, if they give you an answer, don't come back and say, yeah, but in Smith versus Roe in 1996, the Queensland court, forget all that shit. That doesn't work at the roadside. That's for the court if it gets that far. So they're saying the person you want to be is a protected citizen. You want to not answer any questions that you don't have to, and you want to not do anything that you're not legally required to do. That's it. And there can be no adverse inference from that, and no doors can be opened to more questions, more searches, etc. That's the way to be. You're not being obstructive. You're perfectly within your rights, and you are protecting yourself.
Well, this is the problem, you know. People have foregone their rights, Bruce, just because they've just wanted to be the, you know, helpful citizen. And I've got to say that was me for most of my life, right? And you know, things really change a lot, right? And people genuinely do those. Well, I've got nothing to hide, so you know, of course, I'm going to be helpful in that. But yeah, I have to say that unfortunately, view on that's changed tremendously. I still have a lot of hope in humanity, but unfortunately, the police and other authorities have done their dash over the last 6 years, unfortunately, I have to say. And this is, yeah, they showed how easy you can go back to 1940. And even neighbours, and I have to say this, and neighbours and community members that went along with all this, they became the people that gave up the people that were trying to hide. You know, you mentioned, I mean, there was a lot of good people, even a lot of good Germans that hid Jewish people and stuff. They did the right thing, and but there was an awful lot that didn't, right? And this is the difference. This is where we're living, and the world we're living in. And unfortunately, it's been created. So we see a fallen, broken humanity, where how easily people are swayed to give up their fellow mankind at the behest of the state and power.
Yep. Unfortunately, that's right. When the police are asked to choose between protecting us and following orders, they made the wrong decision, and that doesn't go away ever, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's a long road back, that's for sure, if ever. That's right.
All right. Now, another specific case, home visits. So this is where you're sitting at home, there's a knock on the door, you go to the door and there's two coppers at the door. So first off, the police are allowed to walk up your driveway and knock on your door, just like any citizen is. It's not trespassing. If the gate is not locked, any citizen can walk up and knock on your door, and the police will do that. It's called a knock and talk. But the video series made it perfectly clear that the outside of your house, your driveway, your porch, is a very different place to the inside of your house, your castle. So the inside of your castle is a legally special place, which provides you with protections that you don't have anywhere else, so within your castle. So for this reason, if the cops come to your door and knock on the door, do not let them in. Doesn't mean don't talk to them. Doesn't mean, slam the door. Just means do not invite them in. Now, again, they'll probably come to your door and use a phishing question to start with, because you don't know why they're there. Maybe they're following up something genuine. Maybe somebody's made a vexatious complaint. Who knows? Maybe it's the sergeant from Mount Barker saying you've been writing emails to politicians. And you notice here, so if they come up and they give you an open-ended question like that, your answer is, what specifically are you referring to? Now, did you notice I did that to Sergeant Curtis from Mount Barker? Some of your emails of course concern. Which ones? He didn't. He couldn't answer. Started shuffling his papers again. So never go, oh yeah, that's because I talked about Nuremberg with Josh Teague, isn't it? No, don't give them anything. They have to say what they're referring to.
Fancy getting him re-elected too. That's the sad thing, Bruce.
Yeah, well, if there's anything good about it, he's gone from the second highest rank in the Liberal Party to an irrelevant backpincher who'll never make a mark, having demonstrated to the world that when he had his chance for greatness, he wasn't up to it.
Yeah, exactly right. Pretty much like a lot of the Liberal Party.
How's that for a sledge off the cuff?
Love your work, mate. Love your work. It would have been much better to see a One Nation candidate get voted in to oust him. That would have been even better.
Patience, grasshopper.
Patience. Yes, sir.
Okay, so the cops come to your door and you are the target. Okay, so they've walked up to the door and they've said, we've had a call about this address. Do you know what it's about? So that's, again, it's a phishing question. Would you like to confess to something? So your answer, you don't make guesses. You don't fess up to something. You say, what are you referring to? So that's the first step. Now, what they'll say at that point is, can we come inside to discuss it? Only a few minutes to sort this out. It's cold out here. It's raining out here. Is it okay if we step inside? The answer is no, because like I said, inside your house is a special legal haven. Police cannot enter your house except in 4 circumstances that I'll come up to. And once they're in, you run all those same doors opening and evidence planting problems that you can get if you allow them into your car. So the answer is, I'm happy to discuss it through the doorway, but I do not consent to you entering.
Yep. Fair enough.
Okay. And a reminder, the police will not say, can I come into your house if they have a legal reason to enter it. And these are their legal reasons. These are the 4 times they can enter your house without your permission. Well, they can get your permission, can we come inside and discuss it? They can have a warrant, a search warrant to enter your house. They can have an arrest warrant, they're entering to arrest you, or they can be there to address an immediate emergency. Somebody
So
made
like
a
someone
DV
being
call.
scabbed.
Yeah, there was your neighbour heard screaming in the house. We got a phone call from your partner saying that you were beating her up, etc.
Remember,
So-
they can lie. They can lie, Bruce, can't they? So technically,
Yeah.
they can lie about that and do that.
You're filming, right? You're filming, right? Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't think they can lie about something like that. We heard someone screaming in your house, could we come in? Or we had a phone call. Well, if you can prove there was no phone call, then the entry was illegal. Anyway, that's by the basic thing is, if they got a reason to enter your house, they will. If they don't have a reason to enter your house, don't give them one, because you're simply opening doors that you are better off not opening. Reference all the things that I've been through.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Other things they might say, is it okay if we took a quick look around outside? Can we have a quick look through this shed? Now, again, the answer is no. If they've got a lawful reason to look through your shed, they don't have to ask you. And if they don't have a lawful reason and need your permission, why would you give it? Will they plant some evidence in your shed? Will they find something innocuous, which they then link to something else? Who knows? That bicycle, where'd you get that bicycle from? My neighbour gave it to me. Turns out it's stolen. So the basic answer is no, don't voluntarily allow any searches. And the answer is, I will comply with any lawful direction, but I don't consent to any searches. Just puts you at risk unnecessary. Now, finally, the police routinely film you. They routinely lose the vision, apparently, but they do routinely film you.
Only when it's convenient to their case, Bruce.
Now, the question is, can you film them? And the general answer is yes, you can. You can film the police in any public place, and I encourage you to do so. I think it's kept me out of jail between 1 and 3 times. Well, I did go to jail once, didn't keep me out on that, but it kept me out of a longer term in jail, right? And, at that bogus traffic frame stop in Canberra, I had 4 charges stacked on me, which if you added them all together could put me in jail for 10 years.
Yep.
And they went all the way to court and they argued that I'd done those things. They tried to get me convicted of it, despite it all being a fabrication and them admitting at the moment of contact that it didn't happen.
Yep.
So, yeah.
You know what's really disappointing, because that's a massive story, right? I mean, this is them perjuring themselves. They tried to get an innocent person locked up. It should be this should be a global news thing. Like if anybody's in contact with anybody overseas that want to pick that up and get Bruce on there to talk about this, because it is astounding to me that there isn't much more recourse to this. The fact that he's a person that's given all his life back to the community, and serve the military, serve the CFS, give back to your community, do everything you can, and they try to give you a hamburger with a lot and put you in jail for a long time, and it just astounds me. And I really would love for someone to pick this up and give you a massive platform, I'm so grateful that you and I can keep doing this on a weekly basis, and my modest little platform and Cafe Lockdown. But your story just needs to go. That needs to go viral, absolutely. But unfortunately, the censors are still big, mate. The censors are still preventing that stuff to happen. And obviously, when you're talking about the AFP, they monitor every time the AFP gets mentioned. They're probably right onto us. But anyway, let's see what we can come out of it.
I don't want any more contact with the legal system. People said, "Well, did you get compensation?" Mate, I got out without 10 years in jail. I'm not spinning that wheel again. I use my experience to benefit others, I think. And that's why I'm
100%.
talking about this right here and now, you know.
Yeah.
So
Amen, brother. Amen. And it's the same case when they try to get the, you know, do the gun searches and all that sort of
Yep.
stuff. They were definitely looking to set you up to
that was
give you
suspicious
a
as anything.
100%. 100%. You can't deny that, mate. Absolutely. So disappointing. I mean, this is unfortunately where we're at, isn't it? I mean, this is, you know, we're 6 years into. I'm 6 years into waking up, and it's just the world is definitely not what I imagined it.
Yeah, wrong target. That's right. Apparently, telling me to pull my head in doesn't work.
Yeah, no, funny about that, eh?
All right, so what do we got there? So we got, yes, you can film the police, and I encourage you to do so, and don't be fobbed off by them saying, no worries, mate, it's all on camera. We know that their cameras are not very reliable.
Yeah, lived experience. It's a big thing.
All right. Now, just a trap for young players. Be wary of pulling out your phone and filming the coppers while they're talking through your window at the roadside, because that could easily lead to a charge of driving without due care, touching a phone whilst in control of a vehicle, etc., etc., etc. So depending on the state that you live in, you might want to look at the law. It is possible that you could be charged with driving offences if you are sitting in a parked car with a handbrake on at the roadside. You might be deemed to be driving. So just be a wee bit careful of that.
Yep. And that's a tricky one, isn't it? Because they've got so many more laws now. They've got cameras filming, you know, where they got your phone and that. So it's like once you've pulled over for the stop or whatever, and then the police officer comes beside your window, then you say, hang on, before you interact and do anything, I would just like to grab my phone and do that, or first ask, excuse me, officer, are you recording? Because if you are, I just want to make you aware that I'm actually grabbing my phone and I'm going to start recording this interaction. It's tricky, isn't it?
Yep. So one way I get around that, they use body cameras to film me. I keep a body camera in the car as well. Now, again, I don't know if that fully protects you against a charge of distracted driving, but for these specific offences of you may not touch your phone, this isn't a phone. So
it's pretty reasonable price to pay too for your own security too, $130. I mean, really, I know it's tough times, but for your own protection and good, you know, just knowing that you're covered, it's a small price to pay, isn't it?
Yep, and I use it when I go out in the fire truck. If we're going into a hot fire, I just put up my jacket and turn it on. You get some great training footage that way.
Yep.
So
sad that we've got to a stage where we have to have that, though, isn't it, Bruce? It's just, I mean, that's the fallen nature of humanity, unfortunately, and that is what it is. And you know, people know where I'm at, and as I said, I'm a Christian, and we know the world's not going to get any better. It's going to get worse before it does get better, unfortunately. And things aren't going to change in our country until people hurt a lot more.
Yep, I agree with all of that. Now, just to finish out some specifics about phones. So it's pretty easy for the police to come up with a reason to seize your phone. We want your phone because we believe you filmed a bank robbery, whatever. It's pretty easy for them to require that you hand over your phone. So again, just ask them, is that a request or a lawful direction? If it's a lawful direction, you hand it over. Okay. What they don't have at a roadside stop is the power to require you to unlock it. So, you know, all right, if we have a look around the car, oh, we found your phone, just unlock that for us, would you, mate? Scroll. The answer is no. You know, is that a voluntary request, or are you making a lawful direction that I unlock my phone? Now, unlocking phones requires a specific warrant, which no copper at the roadside is going to have. So in a routine stop, if they're asking you to unlock your phone, it's a request, not a lawful direction. And again, you ask them, is that a request or a lawful direction? Okay. So don't just, they'll say, listen, mate, we, seize your phone, open it up. You can always ask them, is that a request or a lawful direction? And it's unlikely to be a lawful direction because they're not going to have the specific warrant when they've pulled you over for a breatho and they just felt like having a bit of fun with you because you've been a dick.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, on that topic of, PIN codes, I found conflicting evidence on this, but some authors said the police can force you to look at your phone, or they can force your finger onto the phone to use Face ID or thumbprint unlock. That's not regarded the same as requiring you to enter a PIN. So like I say, I've got conflicting advice as to whether they could or could not require that without that special warrant. But the advice was, one, don't use face rec or fingerprint ID because, again, criminals can force you to do that as well. And the other thing was, if you are going into a high-risk area, such as you're going to a, Dictator Dan protest in Melbourne, you might want to specifically check that you have a PIN for your phone, not face rec, and that it's enacted, it's turned on as you're going to the demo. Because you might be randomly pulled aside, open up your phone, sorry, I'm not doing it, and they don't have the power to make you do it. But if they can just open it, they can leaf through it. So bear that in mind.
Yep.
Now, it appears the one exception to this is if you cross a border. So customs have very strong powers to search things as they cross borders, your suitcase, shipping containers, etc. And I believe that extends to your phone. So customs can require you to unlock your phone at a border, but the police can't do it at a random roadside stop.
Very interesting. Yeah.
All right.
Well, a lot of that's got to do with, I guess, child porn and all that sort of stuff and other things. Yep. Yeah, I threw that up before. That's not a bad.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now to take it out, a little bit of Muslim, and then we're done. So
another one too, and I think you covered this in a previous episode. Lily said that, and this is a too. If you've gone to the pub and you've had too many drinks and you're not actually going to drive home, don't go in the parking lot and leave your keys in the ignition, because the cops can then come and breath test you and then charge you for drink driving because you've had the keys in the ignition. So if you're going to sleep in your car for the night and sleep off the alcohol that you've drunk, take your keys out of the ignition and put them somewhere else. Don't have them anywhere near ignition.
Yep. So it all depends on the definition of driving, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Muslim.
So take us out. A bit of the old Muslims. And this week it's an update on the brave struggle of the two born as male former men's pro basketball players from the US who've come out as trans women and have stated their intention to play in the women's competition. Now, people have been sending them a whole storm of hate since then. So one of them, Royce White here, has bravely hit back after a media interview, which he was scheduled for, was cancelled.
CNN.
Yeah, by CNN. He said he was shocked. So what he said was, this is so disgusting and bigoted. Two cis women refusing to affirm my black trans lesbian identity. One of them is white, so that's her white privilege, and the other is a self-hating Uncle Tom bootlicker. They are gatekeeping femininity and womanhood. You go, girl. You absolutely go, girl. So I agree with that.
Yeah.
And let's hear what he had to say about that.
And around 2-3 o'clock, they messaged me and said, "We're canceling the interview. We have other news." That's the universal excuse. We have other news, and I just, for the life of me, they're not giving black women a voice. Sometimes identifying as trans black women a voice on CNN. It's just blows my mind. It's disappointing. It is. It's a huge disappointment, especially CNN.
Yeah, that's pretty sad, isn't it? CNN not allowing a black female voice to have their say.
What hypocrites! What utter
Mm.
hypocrites CNN is.
Mhm.
Now, I must say, I do have a little bit of sympathy for the women's NBA because they have acted. They've put a committee together, and they've announced that they'll take between weeks and months to work out what a woman is.
Hmm. Well, at least they're working on it, Bruce. I mean, that is progress, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Well, it depends what they come up with, I suppose. And I have to play poor old
Of
Brendan
course.
Murphy again.
Of course we do. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Because,
let's
like I
indulge.
say, even Australia's top health bureaucrat found that question impossible to answer.
Because we know experts are baffled, Bruce.
Then this hasn't been very helpful with a very simple question for the department, and that is one which has troubled me for a great deal of time with the bureaucracy here. Can someone please provide me with a definition of what a woman is? Department of Health. Definition of a man, definition of a woman.
Never gets old.
Pretty basic. Basic stuff. Professor
Right,
Murphy.
there he is.
Yes.
I think there are a variety of definitions, and I think
Just a simple one.
perhaps to give a more fulsome answer, we should take that on notice.
You're going to take on notice
Yeah.
the question of what a woman is.
No, well, there are variety. It's a very contested space at the moment.
It's a woman who's born a woman.
But there are definitions in terms of how people identify themselves. So we're happy to provide our working
That
definition
is
on
one
those.
of the. I've only been here 2 years. That's the best thing I've seen thus far. Thank you so much.
Mark, what do you make of that?
Working definition. We've got to get a working definition of what a woman is. I reckon they should do a survey between all the country's gynecologists and ask them if they can let everybody know what a woman is. I'm pretty sure they'll work it out.
Look,
Real quick.
it seems funny, but look at what's really going on here. So we've
100%.
got those people were telling us what to do with our health. They're telling us it was safe to take vaccines in pregnancy. They were saying you're going to lose your job if you won't do it. They were telling us grandma's going to die if you don't do it. And they've got the nerve to stand up and say, sorry, I don't know what a woman is. That's Fauci pleading the fifth all over, isn't it?
Yep. Yeah, no, 100%. This just goes to show how crazy our world is. And unfortunately, the majority of Australians are still listening to lamestream media and getting their news from lame sources other than Dr. Bruce Paix on a Monday night live. And that's why the world is still the way it is. And that's why South Australia is still the way it is. And Australia is still the way it is, Bruce, because not enough people are tuning in to Dr. Bruce Paix.
But at least we're getting a lot of good material, right?
Yeah, 100%. What have we got? 121 episodes of good content. I wish I wasn't that time poor. I've created a Dr. Bruce Paix Rumble channel where I've just got to get time to put all the shorts or all the segments onto that, because I want to put not full episodes, because obviously full episodes are on other places, but I was going to put all and link it to different, Not Easy Being Green and other stuff. So one day, Bruce, maybe when I'm retired, I might be able to do that.
All right.
But anyway.
Okay. Now, that was a bit of fun, but the netballers, the women's basketballers, there is a serious side to this. So this is a reminder that this is one of the rules from Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. So his rule number 4, make the enemy live up to its own book of rules. So what's that? Those two born as male basketballers, they're saying to the WNBA, if you can be a woman just by saying you are, that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a resistance technique. And this also applies what I call Lincoln's Law. The best way to get a bad law repealed is to enforce it strictly.
Yep.
Okay, you can be a woman if you say you're a woman. No worries, I'm a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So the only way to get all this BS repealed is to not politely go along with it and disagree silently. It's to laugh openly at it and shove it in people's faces.
Yep. 100%, brother. 100%. Yep. Beautiful work. That's all, folks. Look at you go. Now, Bruce, you know me. I'm always going to come and I'm not coming with anything because we're really talking about time here. But in regards to that topic, I don't disregard that there's actual humans that suffer from gender dysphoria, and I genuinely pray and feel for the people that are going through this. The unfortunate thing, Bruce, is that we are created an environment and in a social environment, and I would say it's well funded by people that know what they're doing, Bruce, that have misled a whole generation of boys and girls to believe that the way they are feeling is the reality. Now, I always love everything that you bring in and you're totally 100%. I just pray for these people because they're not the target of our conversations. And I genuinely mean that. I know that that's not where you're from as well. A person that's suffering from gender dysphoria, I'm certainly not discounting what's going on and the influence that's been over your life, but this is a targeted attack. This is a coordinated attack on humanity, on families, on children, and that is what we're pushing back against. So I kind of just wanted to clarify that. I know it doesn't really need clarifying, and I'm not trying to speak for you, Bruce, but I'm pretty sure that's where you're at as well, brother.
Yeah, and I don't doubt this is a real thing. It's not just a hysteria. My question is, what's causing it? Not just how do we accommodate it? Yep, you go, girl. Question is, what is causing it? And I have huge question marks over two things. One is autism and the things that cause it. And as you know, I think vaccines are a key contributor there. And the reason for that is that autism is strongly correlated with transgenderism. It's a several X risk factor.
Yep.
So, yep, they are related conditions. That's one thing. And the other thing is the increasing number of hormone disruptor chemicals and pesticides in the environment. We poison insects in multiple ways, but one of them is we give them stuff to mess up their sex hormones. That stuff gets into our food supply, gets into the water supply. I think it's real, and I think we need to look at the causes instead of just saying, no, you do whatever you want and we'll respect you.
Yep. But unfortunately, our governments and bureaucrats and others have bought into the cancel culture and naming everybody bigoted and transphobes rather than looking at the real issue. And, look, ultimately, people have got to get better in regards to how they articulate things as well. I think articulating individual people is probably not helpful, but looking at the structure that's behind all this is what we need to unravel and unpack. So, and we continue to do that, Bruce, every Monday. And I really just encourage anybody that's watching on our humble platforms, whether it be Cafe Locked-Out, my Rumble, YouTube, whether it's streaming on X and Facebook, is all we ask. Bruce and I don't make a fortune out of this. At the end of the day, Bruce volunteers his time. I do a lot of after-hours stuff. We have had some support in the past, which is great. But the biggest support you can actually give is even if you cut up segments of this show yourself and spread it out there, just share it. If you appreciate what Bruce brings you on a Monday night with all his time and effort spent, then just the biggest thing you can do for him for the community, and Bruce has always been community focused and minded, is just share it. Share segments, break it up, share what you think's relevant, and spread the word around. So, but anyway, brother, God bless you. Love your work. Love you like a brother, and hope you have an amazing rest of the week and see you on Monday. What do you reckon?
See you, Poppy.
Second time. Good on you, mate. All the best to you too, Poppy. See you, mate.
Cheers.
So the signs were there for all to see, the signs that we lost our way when we jail our heroes and applaud our villains. We turn our hearts away like a silent choir, too scared to sing a song our children need to hear. The ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. Too scared to sing the anthem from a braver day, a song our children still need to hear. The ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.